Yeah. Hey, everybody. I hope everybody's having a wonderful night. So far, anyways. Good start to the Memorial Day weekend. And I have Shane Carpenter with me. I don't never know which way to go this way. He's the creator of Into the 400, and he also has his own YouTube channel, and it's Ozark Mountain Sasquatch. Shane, how you doing?
I'm doing good.
I'm so glad you're here.
I'm
I have
glad to
I
be here.
have I have to tell you something.
Okay.
You're gonna think I'm a stalker, but I'm really not a stalker. But I know it's gonna kind of sound like that a little bit, but it's not. So 8 or 9 months ago, 9 or 10 months ago, I saw Into the 400 for like, I don't know, probably the 10th time because I'm obsessed with Into the 400. I love it. And I made a comment. I went on your YouTube channel and I commented to you and I was like, I love your work. You're doing an amazing, I just kind of gave you some, some whoop whoops. And you replied and you took the time and you replied and you were like, because I asked you in my comment, I said, do you guys have you done anything since? Because I think it had been a couple of years, maybe, or at least a year since you had put anything on your channel. And
Yeah.
you were so sweet. And you just like totally replied and you were like, yeah, we're doing great. We're, getting this close. We're blah, blah, blah. And you can check out Sawdust Beast and Bigfoot Odyssey and all of that fun stuff. And that took me down the rabbit hole. And I started like just obsessively going to all these channels and it just sent me down the rabbit hole, but I love it, and I have such a passion for this, and so does Matt. You know Matt.
Yeah.
And it just, thank you so much for doing that, for like reaching out and like actually like replying, and thank you, because
You're welcome.
you
I actually try to make it a point to reply to every single comment.
hmm
Um, I try to I'm a very personable person, when I'm around people, and I try to be that way also, you know, in the comments. And like I even purposely reply to people who leave bad comments, like you're going to get some of that, and I'm okay with that. I have no problem with people voicing their opinion and telling me that they don't like, whatever. I'm That's okay. It doesn't bother me a bit. A lot of times people voice those opinions trying to get under your skin, and I think a lot of people have quit voicing their opinions that don't care for me and what we're doing because they know it doesn't get under my skin. It doesn't bother me. Like I'll interact
yeah.
with people who don't like me. I don't care. And I'll be cordial. And, you know, if I
hmm
can't explain what they want to hear, then I can't explain it. And it just is what it is. Sorry. So sorry,
yeah. Well,
whatever. Like
well,
it's, but more than anything though, I appreciate the people leaving comments. I
mm,
enjoy interacting with people, and I actually enjoy getting the comments and responding back to them. There's
mhm.
a If you go down through, there's comments where we've commented back and forth 5 or 6, 7, 8
Yeah.
times. If they respond, I'll respond back again.
Yeah. And
As long as
you're
I have the time to, at some point.
Yeah, listen, I for one, and I know I can, there's plenty of other people out there. We appreciate that. We do, because it's for us, for some of us, especially for me. I mean, I know that I can't. I mean, yeah, I get out there and I do hikes and that kind of thing, but I can't get out there every single weekend and do research like you guys do. And it's just amazing for all of us to know, like, hey, if I ask him a question, he's going to answer it, or if I just make a comment, he's going to and we appreciate that very much.
Thank
All
you.
of us do, yeah. So everybody in chat, I see Gary's here, and I see Gene Hudson's here, and Ralph and Cassie, Dina. Hey, Dina, I'm gonna see you next week, girly.
Randy
Um,
Harrington's in there somewhere.
is he?
Yeah, yeah.
Did he want to come on, and I could send him the link? I don't. It's up to him. You
Very
guys.
possibly. Trying to. I saw him comment back up here somewhere.
I saw him. It was when we first
There he is.
started.
Yeah, there he is. He just commented, said he's watching.
Okay. Did you want to join us, Randy? You know you can if you want to. Just let me know and I'll send it to you. Send you the link. Hi, married. I swear, I have such. They're all my friends. They're all so awesome. I love them. So let's talk about. Everybody knows that you have tons of evidence. Everybody knows that because we've seen you guys. We've seen you on Bigfoot Odyssey a couple of times. We've seen you on Sawdust Beast a couple times. I mean, I'm sure there's probably other places and other channels that you've probably been on too, right?
Yeah.
Like recently, over the last year or so.
Um, I mean, those have been the main ones, I guess.
Uh oh.
We've we've done a few here and there, but yeah. Let's see. I can't even remember all of them, to be honest. I mean, really, I think over the past year or so, we've mainly just done Sawdust and Bigfoot Odyssey, and
Oh no.
oh, we lost her. She had an issue going on earlier too, and wasn't sure what it was, but anyway, I'm sure she'll be right back. Yeah, she just left, so she's gonna log back in. And so anyway, yeah, my name's Shane Carpenter. If you don't know me, hello, nice to meet you all. I am a researcher out of Springfield, Missouri, into the 400. It's the Shane Show. You guys like magic tricks? Because I don't know any. So anyway, I guess I'll just talk a little bit about what we're doing, what's going on. We're getting into the drone business, not business, but Randy's purchasing a drone very soon. This is going to give us a lot of capabilities as far as following things and literally being able to lock onto things and follow them. And I'm killing some time. So I was just telling him about a drone. Randy's buying a drone, and it's about $10,000 drone, but
Oh,
it's got an 8K camera on it. It has thermal. It's going to allow us to film from the sky, find these things on the property if they're not in and around camp, and then I'll be able to go to them, and Randy will be able to watch from the sky via the thermal signatures, and
wow.
so we'll be able to use it during the day also. It has a lot of capabilities. You can lock onto things, and the drone will follow them, and all kinds of stuff. It's kind of set up for search and rescue. Um, but we're super excited to get it and put it to use. And anyway,
Is
back to
that your
you.
new? Is that your newest piece of equipment that you got? I mean, that's like the most recent thing that you guys are getting
Yeah, yeah,
and
yeah,
working with.
yeah, yeah. We don't have it yet. Soon though. I think Randy's fixing to order it here in the next week or so. I think he
So cool.
sent me a message today, actually. I think saying he was getting ready to order it in the next week or so. Anyway, it's going to be a it's going to be a great tool, and it's going to give us a really huge advantage, especially in other places. Um,
Hmm.
there's a couple places that Randy goes to that we're going to be able to really put that thing to use, and we'll see in the 400. We're going to test it in the 400, and hopefully it doesn't make them skittish and whatnot. But
Yeah,
our
because is it?
hope
Is
is
it?
to be able to film our situation from the sky,
Mhm.
um, while we're filming from the ground too. When these things come in and around camp, and I'm out trying to approach these things, it would be awesome to have that view from the sky, the thermal signature of me walking out, and you'd be
Right.
just that view alone would just be unbelievable,
Mhm.
because we're already doing that stuff. We don't have cameras on me yet at the time, so that was
Yeah,
kind
but
of
I
a
was
word.
I was thinking. But I did hear you in one of your other interviews where you talked about that you carry around a camera. You just don't use it,
Yes, yes.
right?
So yeah, when I approach these things, um, I have had this camera in my hand every single time. Um,
Mhm,
Me and Randy went over this the other day, and he had to correct me because I've said this before, and it doesn't apply to the very first time I quote unquote made the walk. But the first time I had the camera in my hand, but it was such an intense moment. I was so focused on staying calm and relaxed and not putting off a bad vibe, like a nervous energy,
mhm.
that I never thought about the damn camera. Like I never once thought about the camera being in my hand. I could have got video footage that night.
Are you
Like
talking about
I had a,
the end of
that's,
the juvenile?
yeah, the one that we
Let's talk
approached,
about it.
the
Let's
one
get
we
into it.
approached. Yeah. Okay. So, myself and Randy and Dan Nedrolo, we, went for a walk. We were maybe 1,000 yards from camp, maybe 1,500 yards from camp, and there's this low-lying area where we would camp next to the creek, and we would go out into this area, and there's a lot of trees, and we have a trail that runs down through the middle of it, and we got down about 1,000 yards, maybe 1,500 yards, and we stopped, and Randy, we stop randomly, and Randy will scan, or if feel like I'm getting a vibe, we'll stop and Randy will scan with the thermal. Well, when we catch a heat signature, we'll stop, watch it, and we're looking for certain mannerisms and certain characteristics,
Mhm.
right? Before we decide to make any kind of approach, we have to we have to we have to not know what it is, like you can tell what a deer is, you know regardless, we're still looking for certain characteristics and mannerisms that these things have at night when you are looking at them. Okay. For instance, when we catch one, it'll have its head up above brush or a thicket watching us, right? We face it and we got the camera on it and we're watching it, and they'll freeze. Okay. Or you think they've frozen, but if you watch, they're slowly dropping. I mean, super, super, super slow. So you watch it for a minute, minute and a half, and suddenly you're like, it's almost gone, and you don't realize it is dropping from a distance, because you're at somewhat of a distance. This thing was probably 100 feet away from us, and it froze. And we sit there and watch, and sure enough, the head slowly dropped, slowly dropped. Okay, normally in this situation, we would turn our backs to it and keep the camera on it. Um, at that point, the behavior changes. So instead of them dropping really slow or barely popping up, they'll pop up and boom, pop down real fast. So now everything's fast
Mm.
because our backs are to them, right? Um, so we saw some change in behavior that we hadn't seen because we had never done this approach thing before. So Randy's kind of telling me which way to go, right, left, how far out. So our plan was originally for me to go halfway out, sit down with my back to them. That's a Jane Goodall thing. Okay. um, that didn't quite happen because my body wouldn't let my butt touch the ground because my feet wouldn't let the bottoms of my feet not touch the ground, right? So I was nervous, but once again, I'm just trying to stay calm, and when this all happened, it was kind of spur of the moment. Me and Randy had been talking about this and discussing this. Like at some point, I've got to do this, and
Mhm.
so it just happened to be that moment. I decided this is the time. This is it. And we had Dan Nedrolo there with us, who is a biologist. So it was great to have him there to witness this also, and him have that experience from his viewpoint, because Dan thinks on a different level than me and Randy do. We all three have a different way of thinking and expressing ourselves, because of our backgrounds and whatnot. But anyway, I went back to the guys after a few minutes, and then decided I'm going all the way out to this thing. And long story short, I went out was within about 7 or 8 feet of it. I did hit its face with the flashlight, but one of the things I was talking about how the behavior changed is normally when we're facing them, they move slow, which that also tells us that they think that we can see them possibly. Okay, because they're moving slow. That all changes when our backs are to them. So this time, we were able to basically see that this what ended up being this young male juvie um, got nervous, and we saw that change in the behavior. As I went back to the guys, and as I'm going back out, this thing is popping its head up, popping down fast, looking up, peeking up, dropping down fast, and we're all facing it. So to us, that immediately, Randy, you let me know in the moment also, and so now this thing's nervous and its behavior is changing, and so I went out and kind of him hawed in one spot around a little bit, and it was popping its head up. It was laying down on its belly, and the grass was 2.5, maybe 3 foot tall, and it was laying behind like a big chunk, a thicket of grass. Okay, laying down on its belly. It was perpendicular to me, and its head was closest to me. So it was moved, bringing its head up, towards the top of the grass, looking through the grass at me. And I hit its face with my flashlight a couple times. Its eyes, when I hit it with the flashlight, they sheened back gold with like a silver sheen in the center where the
Oh,
pupil
wow.
would be. You hear people saying their eyes, they've seen them different colors and whatnot. That's what I saw. And we've seen that again also since. Um, so whether it was the same one that we got that eye shine off of the last time, I don't know. I can't say that. So I don't know if this is a common trait or if it was just that particular young male juvie that we had pinned down that night. But I decided I could see that its head was closest to me. So I knew that its body was laying to my left. So I decided to take a few steps to the left, and I was going to kind of come into it as I took those steps, and I was going to lean over and hit the flashlight on the whole body. I wanted to see how big this thing was,
Mhm.
uh, because at this point I already knew that it was the young male, and usually it's the young female that I feel like I'm going out and interacting with when we do this. Um, but like I said, this was the first time I don't believe I had seen the young male up until this point. I can't remember. A lot of this is blurs together.
Yeah,
I have to go
sure.
back and watch videos sometimes to kind of refresh myself because so much stuff has happened. But anyway, I turned to my left and I took, I think, 4 steps, and as my fourth step hit the ground, this noise happened, and it came from the juvie. And the only way I can describe it is it sounded like it clacked its teeth together super loud.
Hmm.
Um, I got a male German Shepherd, and when you tell him to speak, he'll smack his teeth together usually before and bark on the third or fourth time. But hearing him do that, I'm almost positive, that's probably
That's
what it was. We think it clacked its teeth, and then a rock came flying out from my left and landed right beside my foot as my foot sat down.
oh,
So on that note, my foot set and I pivoted and I turned back towards the guys and made my way back to them. And we decided that was good
cool.
for the evening. They actually followed us back to camp. We talked there for a moment, and then we went straight back to camp. And we weren't in camp maybe 10 minutes max. I'm saying more like 4, but I'm giving myself some time. So 10 minutes max. As I'm walking back over towards where Randy and Dan are sitting underneath Randy's little canopy next to his tent, and as I'm walking by the side by side, a rock comes off the ridge and hits it. Boom! Right as I'm walking by it, and I stopped and looked up at the ridge, and I was like, we were worried that we had pushed too much,
Right.
And the fact that they followed us back to camp, like we talked about this all the way back to camp, where Randy was really worried that maybe we had pushed too much this time, um, and the fact that they
So,
followed us back to camp, threw a
so
rock to
that,
let me know they were there, as soon as we got back.
mm-hmm.
Much, and then after I sat down under the canopy with them, they threw another rock and hit it again. So they were letting us know that we felt like all was good.
Yeah. So they paralleled you guys pretty much all the way back to camp.
Yeah, yeah.
And how
So
far, how far is that?
it's
How
about
far?
1,000 yards, maybe 1,500 yards. Um, so without you seeing the setup, so think we have a camp here. Um,
Mhm.
we have a creek on the north side and a ridge behind us on the south side. And we go down to the west in between the creek and the ridge. And coming out from the ridge line, and when I say ridge, it's not like super tall. It's not super huge. It's maybe 80 foot, but it's not a straight drop off. It's an incline, so you can
Mhm.
go up it. But it's got trees all over it and stuff, thick, and the trees come out in areas away from it. Into this low lying area.
Mhm.
Um, so they we gave when we set up that camp, it was to give them two buffer zones. They have the ridge on one side and the creek on the other side, right? So they have these two
Smart.
buffer zones to start, coming in and watching us and
Mhm.
interacting with us. And then eventually they started coming down into the flats. So we would hike out around away from camp in these flats to the west of us, and that's where we were catching them on thermal. Um, so, yeah, when we go back, they're just going back down the ridge line, back to
Mhm.
up above camp, and they did, and they let us know, which was awesome. Like I don't people just I wish people could understand and know like all these things that have happened out there and that are happening. Um, like these things are literally, just like that. They followed us back to camp and let us know that they were there once we got back. You know,
Mhm.
it's some of this stuff is
Which is
amazing.
a
It's
yeah.
unreal
Yeah, which is, I mean, they were communicating with you. I mean,
in essence. Yeah.
yeah, I mean, the rock throws are they're communicating with you. It was probably kinda like, "Y'all stay here for the rest of the night. You got a little too close to my son, so back up."
Right.
Could have been mama bear. I'm a mama bear, so I know, like,
Right.
don't
Well,
mess with my kid.
okay. So oddly enough, you mentioned Mama. So the next day we went back to do a recreation video of me in the spot, Randy back
Uh-huh.
where he was with the thermal. We did some video of where this thing was laying daytime, so so you can visually see all this stuff where it was laying. And
Mhm.
we went out behind in the tree line where the rock came from, and we found Mama's tracks. We also
Mm.
found we also found the female's tracks, the young juvie female's tracks, and the young male is the one that was out there that I walked up on.
Mhm.
So we're pretty positive Mama threw the rock, right? Um, so you always figure, or at least we do in the 400, that if the juvies are around, that the Mama is around watching. And she seems to keep her space a little more. And like
Mhm.
and this is the crazy thing, is she is allowing them to
To
interact with
interact
it.
with you. Yeah.
And, she's seeing me walk out to these two juvies that we assume are hers,
Mhm.
her kids. And so far she's been okay with it. You know, we
So
haven't
how
had any,
many
we haven't had any rocks thrown or anything since,
so
as
how
far
many
as,
years have you been at the 400? How many years?
um, since 2017 is when
Okay.
I went
It's a
in
long
and started
time.
really working the property.
So they trust you. Yeah.
That's what I like to think. I
Yeah.
like to think that they trust me, that we've built a
Yeah.
trust and maybe kind of broken that barrier, you know? Um,
Yeah, I mean, and I'm sure they understand your intention. You're not there to hunt them, you're not there to harm them, you're there to just observe and learn, and I think
well,
that
here's the
they know
thing.
that.
Here's the thing. I'm pretty sure they understand that too.
Yeah.
But like I've preached this and preached this. Um, when you go into an area and you think these things are there, you have to go back over and over and over, and you have to do things to make yourself completely predictable. So when I first started going out there, um, we started setting up these different hikes. Okay, three different hikes, and I would get into if I got into a rut and and things I used to getting bored or whatever, I'd do one of my other hikes, but I tried to do this one main hike all the time. Okay. So that they knew where I'm going next. They know where I'm coming out. And I
Mhm.
wouldn't stray from that. Okay. So I did that for a year and a half, 2 years. And then I brought the guys in. And that's what you saw into the 400. Okay.
Mhm.
So we didn't really go into that thinking, oh, we're going to make a documentary. I filmed while I was out there anyway, like
Mhm.
that's that's kind of what I was doing with my YouTube channel. And so I bring the guys in, and typically when you bring people into one of these situations, things kind of die down. And it was just the opposite. Like things ramped up.
Mm.
It's like they were excited that I had other people there with me. And they're like, it was almost like, if you're cool with them, we're cool with them. Let's do this. You know
Yeah.
what I
Yeah.
mean? And so Randy's been back over and over. He's been out there so many times with me now. Um, me and him have camped in different places out there, trying different things, and just seeing how the difference in location affects what's happening and whatnot.
Mhm.
Our camp now is up on a hill directly across. So we had the creek on the north side of our camp.
Mhm.
We
Mhm.
moved our camp up to the top of that hill on the other side of the creek because they started coming in from the creek side a lot. So there's a cave on the other side of this hill that I've never been to, that I've stayed away from because of the property owner. Um, he told me where it was at, said he hadn't been to it since he was a kid, but his uncle told him to stay. They were always told to stay away from this particular cave. I don't know why, but they they tend to come. It seems like the female and the juvies tend to come from this particular hill a lot, and the male seems to stay up in another area, which we call Crawler Hill. And me and Randy have stayed up there. The first night, there was thermal that we got on Crawler Hill that was supposed to be into the 400, but it came out real grainy, and uh, Randy was having some issues with his setup a little bit, and the way the battery is hooked up and whatnot. But the first night that these guys come out there, or the first time I brought these guys out there, we found tracks right away from the juvies and the down at the end of the creek. We go up to Crawler Hill, and the big male is up there, and we get him on thermal and sit and watch him, and the guys were just blown away. Like he was up the hill pacing back and forth between two trees,
Ah,
like he was mad almost. At
right.
one point, his arm slung. Um, uh, Randy and another guy were actually, watching the screen when this happened, but they were expecting a rock or something to land and hit, because he slung his arm like it looked like he threw something. Um, but we sat there in the dark. It was like 1:30, 2 o'clock in the morning. We're on this place that we call the Crawler Hill because of a video I'd gotten there previously of one of the juvies. And boom, the big male's there, and
Oh
they
my
got to
gosh.
experience that. So it was awesome. Like the first time we went out there, or the first time I brought all the guys in, like I was saying, you expected everything to die down, and it just like ramped up. And
Yeah.
every time we're all there together, um,
You're their television.
yeah, it's like
They're
they're
like, "It's Saturday Night Live. Let's go
yeah.
watch these
I'm trying
guys.
to
They're funny."
I'm trying to pick and choose my words wisely, and but yeah, it seems like that. It's like they almost like they enjoy the uh,
Yeah.
the comedy of
I
us.
think the curiosity is where you guys have an edge. Everybody has an edge when they're curious, right? They wanna
Yeah,
come in, they wanna see what you're doing, they wanna check you out. Are you, like, "What are you doing here? You're in my front living room, like, what's going on?" You know?
yeah, yeah.
So,
There's
how big is the male? How I mean, were y'all,
I
like, kind of freaking out a little bit, like, "Oh boy, he's
I
huge?"
I don't want to guess because I have no way of really giving you a good guesstimate. Um,
Mhm,
I have not seen him during the day. I have not seen him in an area where I would be able to go back and get an idea of his size. So yeah,
but he kinda stays out, kind of,
he
like, on the outskirts of like, he's not.
yeah. So it seems as though he does the hunting and some of the foraging. Um, we've tracked him to an area that has a ton of blackberries and red berries,
Mhm,
raspberries. I mean, it's a ginormous patch. Um, so we think that he does the hunting, some foraging, and maybe that's just for him. Maybe he's bringing that back too. But it seems like the two juvies and the female are the foragers, and they're together. You know, most of
mhm.
the time, if not all the time. And the male, if he's there, we could be completely wrong. He may be back hanging out just a little further back, for all we know.
Watching.
But we're
Mhm.
not seeing him when we're seeing the juvies and getting evidence that the female is around too. Um,
So,
so it's
I know that you guys have been casting prints and recording prints, I mean, for years, right? I mean, you're seeing the individuals, their growth pattern, or at least the size of their prints are increasing, and you can tell which belongs to who, right? I mean, there's how many
yeah,
individuals are on the four or in the 400?
four,
Four,
maybe five.
maybe so maybe she has a little one, maybe. Or he has a second wife, I don't know.
We're hoping to find small tracks
This
this
year?
year. Yeah.
Well, I hope you do too.
We don't we
But
don't
so
have we don't have a ton of good reasoning to even think that, but
mhm.
uh, we'll see. If
So
we
how do
start
they
finding these young tracks, we're going to be so stoked. Like
oh,
you don't even understand what that means for us
you better
because
call me.
at some point these two juvies are going to be leaving the premises, branching out on
Right.
their own, and they're the ones that we're getting all the interaction with. So our hope is that another younger one comes along and gets to watch its older brother and sister do what it does with us and it falls right into
Right.
place from a younger age.
Yeah.
Like this is a long-term
Mhm.
thing and that's what people understand. People just expect that we should be throwing all this evidence out there that we're getting, but
Mm-mm.
like we're not. That's not what we're about. We're not about trying to be the popular guys or anything. Like we have a long-term study going on. We're doing it how we're going to do it. What everybody thinks should be happening just in one ear and out the other for us. We're
Mhm.
just doing
Mhm.
what we're doing. But it'll all come out eventually, and we're
Yeah.
trying to,
It's a marathon, not a sprint.
yeah, yeah, yeah. And
Yeah.
that's that's one of the big things is like if you're interested in what we're doing, you have to understand it's a long-term thing. And like I'm going to be doing this as long as they allow me on the property and as long as these things are keep doing what they're doing, like I'm in, and so is Randy. Like we're going to be
So
doing this until they stop doing it with us.
yeah. So these 4 individuals that are there in the 400, they're there year round, or do they migrate somewhere else for a certain length of time?
No, they're so thus far they've been there year round.
Mhm.
They have so they are off the property at times. Um,
Mhm.
so from being out there weekend to weekend every other weekend at least, you start seeing the patterns of when you're getting the interactions and when you're not. So it allowed me to start seeing this pattern of them not being there. So they would be on their property for a week and a half to 2 weeks, and then they'd be gone
Mhm.
for a week and a half to 2 weeks.
Oh.
So at one point, and this was early on, I had tracked the female and the two juvies off of the south, kind of the southeast or the southwest side of the property.
Mhm.
And then later on, the homeowner seen them of an evening at sundown crossing the road back onto his property, and they came up out of this holler. So I'd looked at all this on Google Earth, and I had this ideology that I'd built that they have a circle that they're, it may not be a perfect circle, of course, maybe an oval, or a square, I
Yeah.
don't know, but they have this perimeter that they maybe trek. So they're going somewhere else, and it seems as though, after seeing this consistently, that they're doing a big circle, and if that's the case, then we should be able to find them in other areas within
Mhm.
this perimeter, right? So I'm gonna go into another part of the story real quick since we're talking about this. So Randy, um, I had to go to Denver, Colorado for about a year and a half. I've only been back home for, I don't know, 6 months. Um, so I had a lot of downtime not being out there in the 400 and whatnot. So Randy started studying the areas around the 400, and just here not too long ago, on a whim, decided to take a trip down and see if he could find this particular road and get out into this area of forest where he might be able to go out and camp. There's some spotty government land in the area and whatnot. But long story short, he goes out, stops and knocks on the door and starts talking to this guy. I believe he knocked on the door. Maybe the guy was outside. Regardless, he gets in the conversation with this guy, this random guy, tells him what he's doing. He's looking for a place to camp and asks him if he can, point him down the road to any areas where he could camp. The guy's like, "Oh man, let's go. You can come check out my property." So they get in this guy's side by side, and he takes him down into his property. And next thing you know, they're going back up, and Randy's driving his vehicle down into this bottom where these three hollers come into one. There's a spring-fed creek, and the spring literally is the creek, comes right out of the hill on the guy's property, just gushing out. So Randy starts setting up camp, and hadn't been there very long. He's getting his stuff out, and boom, a knock. So he immediately gets his parabolic out, and gets the recorder going and whatnot. And he called me just a bit later, and he decided to go for a walk and leave that thing recording while he was gone. And with the hope of maybe they would come down or do some other things. So he took a walk and he called me, and it was either while he was on the phone with me or just before he got on the phone with me, and he had thought he had heard another knock. So of course he's getting pumped now. This is like a mile and a half, 2 miles northwest of the 400, and he's hasn't been on the property very long at all, and he thinks he hears two knocks. Right, so we think we may have found another property that is within that circle or whatever, that
Mhm.
perimeter that they're running, and we're going to be getting out there soon and seeing if we're correct. And if we are, like, the homeowner has already checked us out, checked out the YouTube channel and had
Mhm.
a conversation with Randy, and he's already given us his blessing as long as we keep it private, just like we do the 400.
Right.
Randy, it may have been later on that weekend. It snowed and sleeted that night, so Randy the next day went ahead and drove home, and he had sent the guy some audio clips that he's captured. And one of them was a whoop, I believe, and the guy played it for his friend. This property owner played it for his friend, and his friend had been paying him to clean up the property, like cut it, go cut up some down trees and some
Mhm.
older trees and whatnot. And while he was down there, I guess recently, maybe a few weeks prior to this, he had been down there cutting up some wood and was hearing stuff and freaked him out. And he went up, told his buddy, the homeowner, "I'm hearing some like weird stuff down there." And
His friend's like, "Oh,
So
yeah, by the way."
and that was it. So he was playing these for his friend, and the whoop came up, and he was like, "Oh my
Oh,
gosh,
boy.
that's what I heard down there." So we think there's a chance we've either maybe possibly happened onto another group, which we don't think there would be
Y
another group that close, or we've happened on to another part of
or
this area that
of
they're
their circuit that they run.
yes,
Gotcha.
yes. So it just
Gotcha.
keeps getting better and better. So
Yeah.
there's a week and a half to 2 weeks of the month where they're not there and I don't get any action. I still go out and do some hiking and look in, and
Mhm.
I use that time when I'm on to their time frame. I use that time when they're not there to do things that I wouldn't normally do when they're there.
Right.
Looking into other things out there and whatnot. But if this is true, if we're correct, and this is the same group, then we're going to have access to them 24/7,
Mhm.
which is just amazing. Like it's gonna allow us to continue this process
Right.
at the other location, hopefully, which is going to speed up the whole process. Because now we're going to be able to go from 2 weeks on, 2 weeks off to full time if we have that time, right? So
Some exciting stuff coming up.
yeah, yeah.
That's good.
There's
So, I wanna when we kinda got or when I got kicked out of StreamYard a minute ago, I have to go and I need to bring those clips that you sent me back into StreamYard.
uh
So, if you want, you can you see the chat?
I can.
You can?
Yes. Yes, I
Okay.
can.
You wanna answer some questions really quick while I go and get those so we
Sure.
can talk
I
about those?
will.
Okay. I'm not the fastest at this, so it takes me just a second.
I'm looking. I'm looking. I saw somebody earlier had said they had
Oh,
10 sightings. Thank you, Sharon. I'm gonna mention Terry Brown because he just popped in to say hello, but he's gonna rewatch later tonight. So when he rewatches, shout out to Terry Brown.
he's great, I love him. It keeps, like, starting it starts. I have to, like, remove it. It automatically when I click on it, it goes right in there, but hold on. 2 more, guys, 2 more, sorry. Oh, yeah, see? I'm terrible at this. This is not my Uh-oh, something happened to Shane. I swear I did not close him out. I promise you guys, I promise I didn't. I just wanna make sure that I had them ready for you guys because here we go. You're
I don't know
back,
what happened.
yay.
I don't know what happened.
I don't know
Gee,
either, but we've been having really bad storms the last few hours here, so I don't know if that's what's, like, causing my internet to kinda, like, be a little weird. I don't know if that's the problem. I have no idea.
Gene Hudson, when I disappeared, Gene Hudson had asked what state this is in. This is in Missouri, Southwest Missouri.
Boy, there's a lot of people that snuck in here on me. OMG. Got Miss Connie going on. Dina's still here. Jean, of course. The Bat Mom. Hi, Bat Mom.
I just saw you.
Um, who else? Who else is in here? There's a lot of people here.
Oh, so Randy mentioned here about something. We was talking earlier about the juvenile
Mhm.
uh, that I approached. This was the first time we had done this, and the next day when we went out to do the recreation of it, to get a judgment on size and whatnot compared to me, all that good stuff. Where this thing was laying, when it dropped down and laid down, We're pretty sure it did it fairly forcefully because there was a branch sticking out that it actually laid on and broke. And this particular tree has thorns on it that are about 2.5 to 3 inches long,
Mm.
um, when they're fully grown. And this thing laid down on that branch and broke it. Thorns and all,
Wasn't even phased.
not even phased. Or if it was,
That's
it
crazy.
kept its cool, whatever. But still, that's this
That
thing is
is
like it's this young male is about my size. I would guess from what I can tell.
Now, is he kind of like that basketball player kind of body style or the big barrel chest kind of?
No, I mean I would almost say he's like my size physically. And I haven't
I
seen his
wonder
whole
how.
body. I haven't seen his whole body. A lot of this is just judging from what I seen that night. And another day, me and Randy were out there and we're sitting at camp. Um, and this was maybe, gosh, 15, 20 yards from us. I looked down the trail to my left and just on a whim, and this young male had, it's a whole nother story, but how it got there. But I was on to it already, and
Uh-huh.
we'd been talking about it, and then this happened. But I tracked where it came from leading up to this point after this happened. But it stuck its head out into the trail, and I looked down the trail, and it's just got its head out looking at me, and then popped back
So
in.
do
And
you so do you think that those 2 juveniles are the same age or one's a little older than the other? Like,
I mean, it's all guessing, but the
right.
female is seems to be taller than the young male, and her feet are longer but skinnier, and the young male's feet are more robust. Like the ball of his foot is really pronounced. He has what at times actually like looks like an arch in his foot. But
Mm,
like and I've talked about this before, but one of the things that I really got into the tracks of these things and the differences between the females and the males when they're young, because I was seeing this same thing back in my old area with the group that I was doing this with previously.
mhm.
Um, Same thing. The young females' feet were skinnier. They would be longer, but they were skinnier. So we're seeing that change, of course, within the tracks. And um, I got out of the whole tracking and casting their tracks as often as I could after, I've got like, I mean, I've got videos of trackways that I stopped counting the tracks at 50 tracks and just focus on
Wow.
what's there and fresh in the mud in front of us. I've got a bunch of those videos. And, but it seems as though the female is older than the male, so he's the youngest one, and that's how when I'm thinking all this through in my head, that's how I always connect them in my head. Is
Mhm.
she's older than he is?
So do you think if you guys go back this year and you guys find tiny little prints,
That would be
I
awesome.
you're I mean, the potential, the groundbreaking research that you guys will be able to do would be amazing. I
Yeah,
mean, you'll be able to track growth and literally know
yeah, yeah.
how long it takes them to get from, I mean, oh,
So there's certain
I'm
times of the
praying for you. I'm praying for you. I want that so
there's
bad for you.
there's certain times of the year when the water drops and they go out into these mud flats and they collect mussels.
Mhm.
And this is when I'm getting their tracks that are like, I've got some tracks that are just like so good, like pristine. Um, and that's what we're hoping for. If that is the case, then well, like we don't know how long, if there is a young one, we don't know how long mama's going to carry that thing around and not set it down.
Mhm.
Like we don't know anything about them and how they
Right.
interact with each other and whatnot. So it's all a guessing game, but how awesome would that be? And I
Yeah.
would. So here's my hope, Randy. this is going to confirm, for Randy that there is one, and he'll be just stoked and so happy about that. But like, because I'm so into the tracks, I would love for Mama to set this thing down, and I would imagine being young and you set it down in mud, and it's probably going to put its hands in the mud too,
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
So
Yes, yes, yes.
yeah, yeah. So that's, that now that would be unreal. I would be so stoked. Like that's something I would
Yeah.
show off. Like I would show that off to everybody.
Yeah, 'cause you guys
I go
keep,
on
like,
every show just to talk about those. So
just
it'd be
to talk about that, yeah. Well, you better put me on your list,
I
okay?
will. I will.
Alright, alright. Yeah, I'm I know you guys sit on a lot. All of you researchers do, right? I get it. Like you guys kind of sit on your information because sometimes even when you do get information, you're not exactly sure how it correlates with other things and you kind of do hold on to it, right? So you can kind of prove a theory or have a working theory that you've got going on.
Yeah.
So, yeah. So I want to talk about this brainchild of Randy's where you guys put the audio recorder in the log. It looked like a log that you guys had
Yeah.
out there. Let's talk
Yeah.
about that. Yeah.
Yeah. So Randy, I always say this. Me and Randy come from like different ends of the spectrum,
Hmm.
and but it bleeds together well.
Yeah.
We're
You
both
complement
cool.
each other.
Yeah, we complement each other well,
Mhm.
and we
Yeah.
tend to fill holes for each other at times, even. So it works out really well. So Randy, and he actually, we're going to talk about this, and I'm going to tell about it, and he just changed the whole setup, so and made it better, I'm sure. But he has a new and improved
That's
system
good.
that looks like a small log. Um, so he took a PVC, and he uses a parabolic microphone without the parabolic dish on it, right? But these mics are made and set up for parabolic dishes to clip onto them, basically. And he connects it to a recorder. So you got a piece of PVC tubing about, you know, 10 inches long, 12 inches long, whatever. This end is closed. You slide the recorder in, the microphone, and the microphone almost like snaps into the end. And then he just glued bark all around it, right? And the microphone is actually flat on the end and black, right?
Ingenious.
So it
Ingenious.
just looks like a hole. Well, we thought we thought genius, okay? But one of the clips that I sent you is a clip that nobody's heard yet. Um,
Okay.
we have listened to this other stuff previously on Beast TV, I believe it was, with Mark and Larry.
Mhm. Mhm.
But the one clip in particular is what happened. One of the things that happened before the other audio clips, right? There was things that happened that people haven't heard leading up to that. Um, it's about a 10-minute ordeal of this thing approaching it, right? So we think that there's no way they're going to pick up on this thing. There's no way they're going to know it's there. It looks like a little chunk of wood, a. Chunk of log. There's
Mhm.
no way at night, especially, in the dark, there's no way they're going to go, "Oh, that's a weird piece of wood." Like, come
Yeah.
on, let's get real. There's no way. This thing spent about 10 minutes, 8 to 10 minutes working its way up to the audio recorder, right? um it even, like, evidently reached out and moved it, or maybe a stick pushed it and moved it. But in one of these audio clips I sent you, you can hear this. There's a sound that we have captured a lot that we haven't really played any audio clips of it for whatever reason, but it's something we catch a lot, and it sounds like it could maybe be like a tongue pop, or it almost sounds like
Mhm.
a high pitched snap or something,
Oh,
a pop,
okay.
and then you hear the recorder actually being moved, and
So they pegged you guys
Yeah.
They
So we just assumed that
That's so interesting.
they had to have watched us put it there, you
Yeah,
know.
you think yeah, do you think that I mean,
And the way
I don't know,
there's audio
may
also that nobody's heard after the things that we're going to listen to. The recorder gets picked up and moved about 30, 40 feet away. And like
interesting.
we have that audio, and then it's set down nicely, not dropped, set down nicely. And
How long ha how long
we
ha
went back to get it, and it wasn't where we left it,
I
you
was
know?
gonna say,
Yeah.
how long was it you guys how long was it sitting out there before they came and they were messing with it, like,
Um,
pretty quickly after you
no,
left
no,
it,
it
or
wasn't. It was like a little over an hour, if I remember right.
so they were still probably watching and
Yeah,
just
well,
waiting and
okay,
making sure you guys were gone, you think?
here's the thing. We this is so this where this audio was captured is where our camp is now. Okay, like literally where our camp is now,
Wow.
up on top of this hill that I was talking about on the other side of the
Uh-huh.
creek. So we went up there to see if they would come up there, right? If we went up there in the side by side, they would hear the side by side up there, knowing it was us, and come up there, right? That's
Mhm.
what we're hoping would happen. Um, we went up there in the side by side. I think maybe 10 o'clock. Randy he'll probably correct me in the comments. Um, 10 o'clock maybe, and we sat up there for a couple hours, and then left the audio recorder and drove away. So probably midnight until the next morning. I don't remember. I don't recall what time we picked it up. I'd have to look at
Do you
video. But
do you think maybe they could have figured out that maybe the temperature of it, there was something about it that the temperature looked weird to them or that it didn't seem to fit in or that they could pick up on it. I don't know. I'm just kind of thinking about it a little
I
bit,
have
you know?
I have no idea.
Huh,
No idea.
that's so
Like
crazy.
I've tried to contemplate a lot of things over the
Yeah,
years. There's a lot of theories out there, and I've thought about
right.
all these theories and tried to put
Mhm.
my train of thought to them. At one point, I was contemplating, if these are things are using infrasound, could they be using infrasound for sight, projecting infrasound in the bounce back, just like bats use
Kinda
ultrasound.
like sonar, yeah.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Just like bats
Yeah.
use ultrasound.
Mhm.
And so like when I was thinking this theory through, it could make sense because cameras, trail cams, things like that are going to give a quick, fast bounce back because they're plastic and metal and they're
Mhm.
strapped to a tree, which has bark on it that's going to absorb that. So through that train of thought, they should not be seeing this thing, right?
Right, right, right.
Because it has natural bark on the outside of it.
Interesting.
Um, so I have no idea, I have
Right.
no idea. We just assume that they were watching.
Yeah.
That's that. Like we don't have any evidence that says anything other than that. Like we didn't just set it down right away or
Mhm.
anything. We set it. We set it down. Walked it over. I think Randy. I can't remember if Randy did or I did, but we walked it over away from where we were sitting before we left, and or maybe actually it wasn't right before we left. It was some time. There was a little time before we left, but
Mhm.
so they did have the time to already be there watching us, and they absolutely
Yeah.
could have. I will say I don't set up trail cameras out there. I never have, except for once or maybe twice. But one of them was with Randy, and we knew that these juvies were coming down. We called it. I call it the stairs, but when our camp was down by the creek, on the other side of the creek, on the hill, um, there's a little tiny teeny little draw that comes down, and it has like stair step rocks, flat, big flat rocks. It's a kind of a
Mhm.
drainage between where these two hills come together. So it's
Mhm.
like a giant set of stairs almost. um, we knew for sure they were coming up and down this. That's why I started calling it the stairs. And we set some first before we set trail cameras in there because we knew they were using it. Randy at this point in time had his mics set up in a black box, like a black plastic box,
Mhm.
so you could just take it, set it down, walk away, and record all night long. So we took one of these black plastic boxes to the stairs, went up a ways, and we set it up underneath inside, and he put some rocks around it, right? So the next day we pick up the audio, he's listening to it, and he's like, "You're not going to believe this." So you hear something, it sounds like it's coming up, right? And then it stops. And then you hear tapping that sounds like a fingernail on plastic. Like it like moved, it sounded like it moved a rock and then
Uh-huh.
tap, tap, tap. So,
Wow.
and of course, our thinking was if they're cruising up that thing, they're just going to go right over it, and we'll
Yeah.
have the audio of it going up and over it or whatever. But evidently, as it crested, it's almost like it crested when its head crested going up. It's like boom, saw something out of the ordinary, and it stopped, just like
Yeah.
froze, and then made its way up to it and tap tap tap.
Checking it
Crazy.
out.
Yeah, yeah. Like we have
Whoa.
we have tons of crazy things like that. We have audio of them coming into camp, going through stuff on our tables. You hear all the stuff being moved around on the tables, but when we got back to camp, nothing had been moved except for one thing, one thing out of the ordinary. And Randy's this happened on Randy's table. So Randy has these two tables he puts up, makes a corner out of underneath this awning. Oh, you got his equipment on one side and kind of his some food and
Mhm.
rations and whatnot and other things, water over here. This one particular time we left audio sitting out. He left it sitting on the corner of the table. I believe it was on the corner table. Anyway, they come in after we leave for a bit, and first thing you hear sounds like something sniffing the recorder, and then you hear what sounds like a zipper being zipped and unzipped 17 times, like zip, zip, zip.
Did you
Um,
guys have, like, a screen or something on one of
no,
your
n- no, it was all the equipment was sitting right behind where the recorder was on the end of the table.
Oh, okay.
There's like bags and yeah, camera bags and things like that.
So they
Lots of
were
stuff with
playing with the
zippers.
zipper.
Now, Randy did find um he did find a bug that kind of makes that sound. So Randy doesn't mention the zipper sounds very often, but I'll mention them because I I know what the heck was happening. And
Yeah.
if that was one of those bugs, we would have heard it again, and you don't. It's like one of the first things you hear is that what sounds like a zipper being zip, 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 like zipped and unzipped just a little bit over and over 17 times. Anyway,
Yeah.
and then you hear it going through things on the table. And as we listen back, Randy is like, he's going through his stuff and trying to find the things that are making the sound. And eventually he figured out that they were literally just going down the table from the equipment, turn the corner, going down through stuff. At one point, there's a thing like a metal on metal. And
Hmm.
Randy pulled up his little burner. And as he pulled it up, it hit a metal plate that was in a
And
little deal
made this
behind it, and it made that exact sound. Like they went through everything on the table, and the only thing that they left that wasn't that was out of place was some plastic utensils, a small box of plastic utensils. And Randy's like OCD, so he of course, boom,
picked it up. He was
yeah,
like, "Yeah,
yeah. When
okay, this
we
is
we
the
got
one thing
back,
I didn't."
we got back, he noticed that. And okay, so we haven't heard the audio yet. We come back, he notices that. We had came back from Crawler Hill, I believe is where we were. So this is in the middle
Wow.
of the night. Um, and then another thing was he has wet wipes that he sits on top of a 5-gallon cooler on the end of his table.
Mhm.
Those wet wipes were on the table next to the cooler, and one was pulled out and had dirt, was like filthy dirty all over it. like something had grabbed it, pulled it halfway out, and stopped. But in the audio, you hear the, a pack of wet
The
wipes. The
getting
bag
yeah.
going in, makes
Uh-huh.
a lot of noise. You hear
Right.
that being grabbed and set down on the table.
Oh my
I mean, it's
gosh.
just, it's crazy. We have so much crazy stuff. Um, we've got like, while we were gone, we're on our way back to camp, and they're in camp. You can hear all this stuff going on, and then you hear this loud crack. I mean, it was whatever limit broke had to be, you know, that big around at
Mhm.
least,
Mhm.
and we could not find whatever it broke. Like we never found it, but we have the
Is
audio of it, and I mean it's loud. Like your speakers spike when this
wow.
break happens, because it's right there in camp, right near the recorder. Tons
Is
of
there
stuff like that.
has there ever been a time in the 400 where you guys felt that your safety was, in jeopardy or anything like that? Like a very like anything aggressive?
No, not me and Randy. Other people have.
Yeah.
We've had one other researcher out there that at a couple times was on edge and felt like
Terrified.
felt like things could go bad. Yeah. Yeah,
Hmm.
but it was, I mean, I can understand it to an extent though, because
Yeah.
like he was in the Ozark Mountains, had never been, where he was. It's the middle of the night. Um, I could have been taking him out there to chop him up or something, you know what I mean? So like
Right.
he didn't know me super well. Uh, we couldn't.
Had he,
We were,
had he
we
had
were,
had
we were, we had just
had
had
he
an experience on Crawler Hill, gotten another thermal on Crawler Hill, and we're
uh-huh.
coming down from Crawler Hill, and we don't have trails on Crawler Hill, right? I don't always go up the same way, but at the
Mhm.
bottom there's a trail that we've made that we can catch that'll take us all the way back to camp. And at night, coming down the side of this mountain and catching that trail can be difficult, So we missed it, went back up, come down, missed it again, went back up, missed it. So I know if we miss it, we're hitting the next holler, and the next holler goes down the same place, right? So um, he says, "Have you hiked this holler?" I'm like, "No, never been in it in my life." As soon as we get down in it, we find a cave, right? Um, it is super super hot. We're sweating profusely, like 100% humidity, 94 degrees, I believe it was, at
Oh
night.
boy.
It was so gross. Um, we just watch this thing on thermal. I pull out my compass just to check my bearings, and the compass is spinning. Like no matter which way I turn, it's just spinning. And he's seeing that, and I'm like, "Hey man, turn on the thermal and do a scan." He's like, "No way,
Ugh.
no way,
He didn't
ain't
even
doing,
wanna know.
ain't doing it." Yeah, yeah. I was like, "No, come on, you have to."
I remember you talking in another interview. I'm not exactly sure whose channel it was, but I remember you talking about that the 400 that there's like ley lines, right, or something that run
Um,
through.
I no, I
Is
wouldn't
it
say
ley
I
lines
I
or
wouldn't say ley lines, but there's some kind of extra energy in that area.
some? Okay,
Uh,
so that
it's
would cause
it's
the compass to kind of go cuckoo,
yeah,
right?
yeah, 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 and it's all geological,
Mm-hmm.
as
Mm-hmm.
far as I can tell, and what I've studied and looked into and what we found. Um,
So
there's geological
interesting.
things out there that create a little extra energy or something. I don't know. I'm not a geologist. I don't necessarily
Yeah,
understand all that stuff, but it is a high energy area. It's the only one in that county
so
actually.
crazy.
And
All
which
right, so
which which brings me to, I actually think that there may be something to that, and that these things may be attracted to these high energy areas for some reason,
yeah.
you know.
How do you find that out? Like, how do you find out if your area or an area that you are doing research in, if those kind of
That's a good question. I
Yeah,
couldn't I
I'd
couldn't
like
tell
to
you.
know.
I
Well,
couldn't tell you. I had a
mhm,
friend that was working with a geologist that got these things for me, basically.
mhm,
He got the energy zone in the county for me from the guy. And so yeah, it just kind of
mhm,
that just kind of happened on its own. He met the guy was looking into this because he was, as a geologist, was going to these high energy areas to,
mhm,
take real numbers, I guess, maybe. And
mhm.
he's having Sasquatch experiences in these areas. And so
Interesting.
so we wanted to see. This guy came to me and said, "Hey, what county is that in? Like, it should be nice. It'd be sure be cool to see if that's a high energy area too, And
Mhm.
sure enough, it was. So
Well,
it's interesting.
we have we have a research team down here and in Florida. They're doing amazing work, amazing work. They're on fire. They're out there every weekend. They're boots on the ground. They're just, I mean, killing it. They're just killing it. And it's the name of the group is Mid Florida. Why am I drawing a blank? I see them every day, like in my Facebook feed. I'm just like all of a sudden, I don't even know why I can't even. It's Mid Florida Bigfoot Research Group. They are amazing. And I heard Marie Dumont on another show, and she kind of said it how she said it was, we're not out there researching, and I'm going to use, these are my words, but not hers, but the woo, right? So they're not out there actively researching the woo, but they're documenting strange things that they come across while they're out there doing their research, right?
Right, right.
So do you and Randy run into any strange things while you're researching?
We don't. We don't.
No?
I mean, I've seen what you could call an orb, but the
Mhm.
one that I've seen, like thousands of people have seen, just west of me in Joplin, Missouri, they call it the spook light. You can go out on this road and
Mhm.
see it fairly often, but like I've never really seen anything like that in the 400.
Interesting.
Never had any of the what you would call woo stuff.
Yeah.
Never
Yeah, because when
really.
you mentioned the energy, that energy thing, that's what made me think of it. I was like, "Oh, wait a minute, maybe, interesting." All right, so
Yeah,
you wanna get
no,
into some of this
I've
audio?
well, I've okay. I would just want to say real quick that I've looked
Sure,
in.
sure.
I'm interested in all that stuff. I have been in the
Mhm,
past. Like you wouldn't believe some of the conversations that I've had and some of the ideas I've came up with to test um, a lot of these theories and these ideas. Like that was
mhm,
2, 3 years ago. My
mhm,
objective was to take all these theories and figure out ways to test them and either prove them right or prove them wrong. And the outcome didn't matter to me. I just wanted to be
mhm.
able to say, let's quit talking about this because it's bullcrap, or
Yeah,
let's keep talking about this because there's some stuff, maybe some substance here. Um, I don't even think about that stuff anymore because of where we're at and with what we're doing. Like, I don't even have time to contemplate that stuff anymore because like, we're trying to process what is happening when we're out trying to get like up and close and personal to these things. You know what
mhm.
I mean?
Yeah.
And I'm saying this because we're getting into this audio. Um, the last time I approached one of these things at camp, like they come in around camp now, we catch them on the thermal. We look for certain characteristics and, you know, like I said, the movement, the way they're moving and stuff. Once we feel comfortable that it is what we think it is, Randy guides me out with his voice. And our whole objective is for me to get within 8 to 10 feet, um, be able to sit down and try to interact with these things, right? So this
Mhm,
is this is what we're doing and trying to do consistently. The last time that this happened, I don't want to use the term that this thing was trying to communicate with me, because I don't know what this was. But you've heard the Ron Moorhead stuff, right?
Mhm. The
What they
samurai chatter and
call the samurai chatter. So
mhm,
that's what this thing did to me. But it wasn't all high and mid range, like
mhm.
in Ron Moorhead's. They almost sound aggressive, like they're
They
arguing
do.
or something, right? This
Mhm,
was like a low and soft tone. It did it to me, and it was within 10 feet. Um, so the first time I made the walk was intense, right? But I kept my calm, and never, like
mhm.
after I got out of the situation, my knees were knocking, and the adrenaline hit.
Sure.
I was good. I was good. Okay, so I just want to say real quick, this is how it went down. The last thing Randy says to me before this stuff happened was, "Oh crap, I think you're standing right where it was." Well, as he says this, I'm walking out through a thicket, and have our camp set up where they, buffer zones, right? I mentioned
Uh-huh.
buffers. So the buffer zone is like 20 yards out that side of camp. The back of this thicket is open, right? It just goes into large trees and a lot of space between them. So they come in behind this thicket. I walk out through this thicket, and yeah, as he says, I think you're right where it was. I step out of the thicket on the backside. I'm like, oh crap! So I turn and start trying to see around me. Um, I think me and Randy may have had like a few words of conversation, and then I hear this
Mhm.
whatever it was, and needless to say, like adrenaline poof up my spine, my hair, what hair I have on my neck stood on end. It was
Mhm.
like
I
it
can
was
only
it
imagine.
was it was intense, and Randy, he said, you know, we don't know what that meant. You should probably back out. So I made my way back out of there into camp. Super intense. Like if it happens again, I'm good. Like I've experienced it.
Yeah.
Uh,
So
Freaked me
did
out.
it so do you think that it was trying to communicate with you or trying to convey like, "Hey, guy, like, back up," or, "You're not
I
welcome
have no
here."
idea. I have no idea,
Not
and
no,
that's the part that, like, okay, so I can say to myself, it was trying to communicate with me. Its tone
right?
was soft. I can say all these things to
Mm,
myself and make myself think that all was good and peachy and it was saying something nice to me, but like being honest, we don't know. We don't have a clue. Um, my
now,
vibe my vibe
mom
was got intense because I got a shot of adrenaline, you know what I mean? So I
right,
can't say that
yeah.
I got a vibe out of it because I was too busy, like, like kind of in
Sure,
shock
sure.
that I was hearing this up close and personal. And so,
'Cause I'm
uh,
sure it's a totally different thing, like you said, like, you're seeing them, right? You're visually seeing them. You're seeing them. So and you're seeing different behaviors and you're seeing different but when you hear it speak
mm,
and verbalize, I
yeah,
mean, that was probably yeah, I don't know what I would do if I heard that. I don't know.
it was intense. Like I'll
Yeah,
react completely differently. Hopefully, when it happens
when
next
it
time.
happens again. Yeah, and it
Yeah,
will,
like,
it
hey,
will.
yeah, like, "This is my first time, man, give me a break," you know what I mean? It was
The
intense.
yeah, well,
I'm doing
you
good to hold
guys
myself together going out and walking out to these
yeah,
things and knowing what
but
I'm doing, like,
you guys are continuing to build the trust with them, and,
when
it's
we're that's the thing is, like, we're pushing that we don't know where that line is, and thus far,
mhm,
even though we're pushing, like, if they do something to say, here's the line," like,
yeah,
we've been pretty good about stopping immediately and pulling back, and,
mhm,
you know, um, we've tried to let them, like, stop each moment, you know?
Yeah, right,
And
let them stop the interaction,
yeah, yeah,
so
yeah, yeah. And
yeah.
when we feel like something has happened and that we may be good, then
Mhm.
we stop immediately, you know. So they've obviously had to have learned from that that they are kind of in control of the situation and that we can
Right.
somewhat be trusted, you know. So
Mhm.
that's the whole game. So that happened, right? Um I'm in Colorado going through audio. And now let's go back to our original conversation about Randy's badass little log recorders.
Yeah.
Okay. So we put these things down, we leave, and you hear in the audio, and when I'm not going to go through all this because it's like there's 10 minutes of just little things happening here and there, and like me knowing
Mhm.
what I'm listening for and whatnot. After you hear everything else that happens, you put it all together. So this thing spent about 10 minutes leading up to this. And there's a piece of audio where you're going to hear what sounds like could be like a mouth pop or a snap, or I don't know. You tell me. But whatever this sound is, we catch it fairly often when we're getting, audio recordings like this. And then it sounds like something kind of moves the recorder. You can hear the leaves that the recorder is sitting in, this little log. You can hear the leaves that it's in move, that it's sitting in. So that's the first piece of audio. And then after that, you'll hear what sounds like some kind of speech. And so one of those audio clips is the original, and then there's I've kind of pieced it up to where you can hear the original, but just the verbiage.
Mhm.
And then there's a clip of the original and it's cleaned up. So all the crickets and everything are taken out. And then there's one of just the verbiage and it's cranked up. Every other noise is taken out of it. It does affect what you're hearing in the verbiage somewhat. Kind of makes it sound hollow because when you're taking all those other little things out, the
Mhm.
crickets and whatnot, you're taking some of those frequencies away in essence, so it does change the sound of it a little bit. But as we go through it, you know, you tell me. I don't know what it's saying. I I've quit even trying to guess. Like it don't even matter at this point, like I will never figure it out.
Alright. So you wanna play the first clip? You ready to go?
Sure.
You guys in chat, you're in for a treat. You're in for a treat. Sit back and check this out, and if you have headphones on, crank it up. You wanna hear all of this. Alright, let's go.
So, did you hear the right
Mhm.
after the pop pop?
Yep.
Um, that is the recorder being moved. Like what you're hearing is the leaves and the stuff under that recorder.
Interesting. Alright.
Can we listen to
Next.
that one again?
Sure.
Like,
Sure.
I want people to listen to that
Sure.
pop, that snap snap or whatever it
Okay.
is.
Let me play it one more time.
Sure. Okay, so just from because I've listened to all this audio, um, I'm pretty sure this thing at this point was sitting fairly close to the recorder. It made its way up to the recorder, like probably within
Mhm.
arm's reach, or maybe just outside arm's reach. Like maybe it reached over with a stick and pushed the recorder one end of it over a little bit. I don't know. Just it's all guessing, of course. But from what I can tell, it made its way up over a 10-minute period. Like it was like super cautious of this. random odd log that looks real, Um,
It does sound like, in a way, it almost sounds like a finger snap, like that, like a loud finger snap, a little like interesting.
right? But there's two. It's like a
Yeah,
pop,
there's
pop.
two. Yeah, pop pop. It's
Yeah,
twice.
yeah. We
All
have
right.
we have. I've I've probably picked out. I did a lot of audio stuff while I was in
Mhm.
Colorado because I had a lot of evenings of doing nothing. And man, we've probably got that sound 50 times on audio
Interesting.
over
So
the
it
over
does
the several
so it has
years.
to be something that they're, clicking their tongue, like, off the
Yeah,
roof of their mouth
something.
or
Yeah.
something.
We've got audio from Crawler Hill, same stuff. While
Wow.
they're throwing rocks at camp all night.
All right, let's check out the next one.
So this happens next.
Play it again. That's crazy.
Right?
I mean, clearly there's something being said there. I gotta play it again. Sorry. Wow.
Crazy, huh?
Yeah, that is really crazy.
So from there, we started messing with the audio and taking things out of the audio to kind of isolate. I think the next clip I just isolated that verbiage, whatever that is saying, or it sounds like it's. I hate to say that it's speech because I don't know for sure. You know what I mean? But to me, it sounds like some kind of speech, like
Mhm.
something is being said. So I just isolated that and turned it up a little bit. So we're just going to hear a loop of that.
Okay.
Once again, weird, huh?
That's so weird. It's it's thrilling though because we all are we've I don't know, we all kind of want to know what they sound like, right? Like,
Yeah,
now you think that this would have been the juvenile though, right? You don't think it's the
I have
big male.
no idea. I can't even. I couldn't even begin to tell you. I couldn't even guess. Like I have no reason to think it was any one of them in particular.
And it
That
didn't
could
sound
that, could-
and
that could have been the female.
yeah, you're right. Could have been anybody. Well, not
Yeah,
anybody, but
yeah,
any
like
one
it.
of them. Like,
Yeah,
I just it's like it's almost to me it kind of almost has the feel of like, huh, like, huh, uh, wonder what that is.
right.
Like,
Yeah,
yeah.
yeah. Me and Randy have talked about this, and like we've kind of said the same thing. It sounds like it's real kind of like a matter of fact.
Mhm.
Like oh,
Maybe they're a Johnny Depp fan.
right,
Free Depp. Maybe that's what it was
right.
saying. I don't know.
Free Deb.
Yeah.
I haven't heard that one. Like I've had people, you know, hit me up. Hey man, I think it sounds like it's saying this. And
They're just a
like
Johnny Depp fan. That's all. Yeah.
I get it. I get it.
I love it.
I ain't gonna
All right.
lie. I've looked at some of the stuff through the
Oh,
trial.
I I can't help it. Like, it's like, it's a train wreck, right? Like, you can't stop watching it. It's almost like
Yeah, Johnny needs to ditch women and go start Bigfoot research, and that's what he needs to do.
yes, we need to write to him and tell him that. All right, let's try the next one.
All right, so this is cleaned up.
All and death. All and death. All and death.
What do you think the thing is at the very end too? Like they're throwing it or they're
Um, to me, it almost sounds like a rock hitting,
Mhm.
like rock hitting rock. Like I don't know. I
Right.
don't know. A lot of these sounds we associate it with oh, it sounds like this, and we tend to feed into that when we hear them.
Mhm.
Like, oh, there was a knock. They just hit a hit
Mhm.
chunk of wood on a tree.
Well, when you
We
guys
don't
went back to
necessarily we don't necessarily
retrieve
have evidence of that, but we
so
assume
when
that.
you so when you went back to retrieve the recorder, was it intact, completely intact, as if nothing had happened to it? Like, or was there
So
bark missing? Was he picking at like I'm just curious
we
what the
went back.
condition was.
We went back the next morning to get it, and
Mhm.
we got up there, walked over to where it was supposed to be, and it wasn't there. And
Mhm.
I remember being like,
Uh-oh.
pretty sure this is where we put it.
Yeah.
So we started looking around, and oh, here it is. And then we're questioning ourselves, like, man, I could have swore we put it over there. Did we not put it over there? Like, I remember having this
Mhm.
conversation, and then
Yeah.
we didn't think about it. Like, I think me and Randy in the moment just assumed that maybe we had moved it or something before we left, or I don't know. But when I found this in the audio, right, the next things you would hear if we were to play the rest of it is after this, it basically sounds like the recorder gets picked up. You hear walking. Um, I haven't
Mhm.
counted the steps yet, but there's not as many as you would expect to hear for the distance for which we found the recorder. Like if it was a human, you would expect many more steps, right?
Mhm. Mhm.
But from the audio, it sounds like it gets picked up, taken over, set down nicely. It's not dropped or anything. Set down nicely, and then there's like a pause, and then a few steps, and then it's gone. And
And it was
so,
totally intact,
yeah,
nothing.
yeah, yeah. Didn't
Did
I don't
you
remember anything being wrong with it or it being like dinged up, and
Well,
it was.
people talk about them having this oil that they think it's sebum or, some kind of an oil that they have on their hands. Have you guys documented anything like that on things they've picked up or played with
I
or messed with at
mm,
camp?
no, we haven't
No.
tried any of that in the 400. Randy
Mhm.
has. Randy's documented some handprints. Um, he'd have to tell you about that, but Randy does have some experience with that. I have
Mhm.
actually have a handprint casting. We did get a handprint casting.
Really?
Yeah, yeah.
That's pretty
We
cool.
we were.
Like like flat handprint?
Oh
Like
yeah, yeah, yeah. So what we did was we took a small block of I believe that one was brown sugar sea salt,
Mhm. Mhm.
brown sugar sea salt mix, and we had this. There was this little rock overhang, and I had found tracks going up to it, juvie tracks going up to it several times, and one of the first tracks that we found out there, good ones of adult tracks, was at the base of this spot going up to this area. So for a while, I was thinking before I'd figured out how many there were. This was early on. I thought maybe a female and a juvie were laying up underneath this thing, right? It's not like something you can sit under. It's like something you could slide up underneath, full of pine needles underneath one side of it, and that looked like something big had been laying up in there, right?
Hmm.
Like sprawled out. And then the other side, um, up underneath this, there's a big flat rock. And every time I would go up there, even when I would not find tracks, there would be like new pieces of rotting bark, or not rotting bark, but rotting wood, chunks of rotted
Hmm.
wood up on this thing, right? Um, I don't know if you've ever heard this from me or not, but I believe these things chew on rotted wood. Mountain gorillas get like 72% of their salt intake by chewing on rotted wood.
Oh.
So I have on video documented tracks around these down trees that I've been watching over time, and these trees disappear, and chunks are being taken out and disappearing. Like if a bear tears into a rotted tree, you're going to find all those pieces laying there, right? Because they're going after
There
the
at the spot. Yeah.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
So where's the wood going when it's just gone? The tree's being dug into, but there's no wood around it. There's no chunks anywhere. There's no mess.
Hmm.
Like it's just
Hmm.
oh, look at these giant human-looking foot tracks, like where they're squatting down and most likely munching. But that's a whole nother deal.
That's crazy. We have one more clip for you guys. So let's play this last clip.
Death. Death.
So that was
Like,
with as much of the stuff that we could get out of it. So a
mhm.
lot of frequencies are cut out of all that, all those little sounds we're trying to get rid of just to get down to that voice. So it changes, the sound of it a little bit. But
Let
like
me play it one more time.
when you hear that, it definitely sounds like some kind of speech pattern.
Yeah. All right, let's play one more time.
Death. 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 Death.
That's so crazy. So do you think, I mean, have you guys kind of tried to look at maybe some Native American um languages to see if there's anything in their languages that are similar to what you're hearing?
Um, yes. I don't want to
Mm,
say anything on this clip yet,
still
because
look
I'm
still
still,
working it out.
yeah,
Yeah.
I'm
Yeah.
still looking at some
Top
other things.
secret
But
information. You'd have to
yeah,
kill me,
right.
right?
Yeah, yeah. No, we can talk about that privately, but we have captured other verbiage or whatever you want to call it out there also. I have on audio and video something saying "ahu." One of the times it's like soft, like "ahu." The other time, um, the guys are at the bottom of this ravine, and something in the trees up top yells at them, "Ahu!" So we have that. I have found that actually in two different Native American languages, and one of them was hello, and the other one was friend. So either way, we're good there, if that's the case, right? Um, and this is the second, I guess, real verbiage that we've captured, but like this is
That's so
crisp and
cool.
clear and clean,
Yeah.
and um,
Almost as if he was talking right into a microphone. I mean, like as if he was kind of like right there, you
I know.
know?
But actually, just making light of the situation, trying to understand it and picture it. I've
Yeah.
had that moment where I visualized, um, because of it sounds so calm and collected. Almost like maybe smart alecky, like it leans down to the recorder and like, you know,
Yeah. Yeah.
I'm dead.
Yeah.
Give them a little something to freak them out, or who
Yeah.
knows.
You never know. So let's see if anybody we have over 30 people in the chat. That's a lot of people. I'm like in shock right now. Does anybody have any questions for Shane?
I think I'd seen.
Um,
I
I
think Ruby
start a
Ridge.
yeah, I start a few of them. Let's see. Strangeland wants to know, Shane, if you guys are getting a drone, I think having the camera being able to move and tilt is important. So,
Oh, it does.
yeah,
Yeah, this drone does everything.
this okay.
Yeah, this
Gene
drone. This
Hudson.
you can be like on a dirt bike going through the woods, and
Mhm.
this drone will follow you and avoid all the trees, and like it's a super super awesome drone. Like Randy is not kidding around. This I think this is his new project, and he's so pumped. And it's if some things happen for us and it works, it
Mhm.
can be huge for us actually.
I'm telling you, I'm so excited. I'm praying that you guys find a baby. I'm praying.
Right?
That's
Wouldn't
gonna
that
be
be awesome?
awesome.
That would be
Yes.
that would be awesome.
Oh my gosh. It would be amazing.
I will
All
say
right.
too, so here's a little extra little bit we haven't really talked about much, but I have a buddy out in Hollywood. He's a like closet Bigfoot junkie Hollywood director, producer. And
Mhm.
we've been kind of looking at some possible things together we've been chatting and became really good friends over the past like 3 years. But um he's like so into the subject, like he's listened to every Sasquatch Chronicles episode, like
So have I.
maybe twice, like junkie. Oh, you're Joe is yeah. So anyway, I invited him in to come in this October and come out with us. And
Mhm.
he's been wanting to do it for a while, and we haven't been able to put it together and make it happen. So he's like, "All right, I'm coming in. We're doing it this year. I want to come in and see these things, and experience this." So while he's there, he's going to run a camera, and like he's going to help us document, because we document everything as it happens. And he's already good at that. It's like his part of his job, so it's perfect. So he becomes friends with this lady. I can't mention her name yet, but she is an Emmy Award winning documentary filmmaker. Um, like super awesome, right? So she's been kind of hearing about us for some time through him because they're friends. She did a documentary on somebody that had died, and my buddy was the last one to work with her.
Mhm.
So they met through that interview process. She interviewed him for her documentary about this other person. So they became friends, and he in conversation, he's always talking Bigfoot, trying to convince people Bigfoot is real,
Mhm.
to his close friends, So she kind of got interested, and so he said, "Hey, I'm going out there in October." Shane invited me in, and I'm gonna go and experience this, and she got excited, and she said, "Do you think they would let me come?" She's like, I'll bring my cameras. She's like, "I'll run audio. I'll do whatever I need to do to help out." And
Awesome.
so anyway, organically, we have these two people coming in now that
Mhm.
are kind of jumping in, and I think we're going to start they're going to start with us in July, and we're just going to go through this process of like, she may be very interested in like me and Randy's personalities and what drives us, and
Mhm.
like she's really good at what she does. Like my buddy he's not a documentary filmmaker guy. He's movies and like thriller, and he's
Mhm.
into that side of things. So they have like two different angles, but what's going to happen is she's going to be coming in, and she's going to see these things happening and be experiencing these things with us, and like suddenly
Gonna get hooked.
she's going to be hooked. Yeah.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
any thought that she had about me and
Right.
Randy is going to turn into like her being involved in this craziness that she's seeing with her own eyes and experiencing.
Right.
And anyway, it's, if everything goes right, they'll be here 4 or 5 times throughout the summer with
Yeah.
us, and just
Yeah.
coming in to help us. And we're just gonna kind of let whatever
Mhm.
happen organically, the 4 of us, and bring them into the situation too. It's going to free me and Randy up. Me and Randy don't have to. We're not going to have to be so focused on filming and trying to get
Right.
everything and get the
Right.
evidence, because they're going to be taking care of a lot of that. And it's going to allow me and Randy to be mic'd up all the time and not have to so much rely on having our recorders going. And so
Right.
I'm terrible. I'm terrible about recorders. Like, my focus is get as close as I can. Get it, I'm trying to experience this close up and seeing them face to face again, and
Yeah.
being able to eventually do that over and over and over consistently, and then start
Yeah.
filming that process. And
Yeah, because it's something that you're working towards having a repeatable experience. It's something that that seems to
Mhm.
be your and Randy's goal. Like you want to repeat the same behavior. You want to document the same.
Yes.
I love. That's why I'm telling you. It's why you got me into this
Well,
because
here's the thing
I
though, is
love that about you guys.
everybody thinks to prove these things are real that you're going to have to bring a body in. Okay.
Hmm. Hmm.
I can agree with that to an extent, but if there's any other thing that could be done to prove that they are real,
Hmm.
it would be our end goal, and that is for me and Randy to eventually get to a point where we're interacting with these juvies, we're sitting down right in front of them, whether it be
Hmm.
night or day, but we're going to have small cameras on us, hopefully at that point, like button cameras one's a thermal, one's a 8K with all the right settings, hopefully. Um, and the filming process is happening on its own. So if you can make that happen consistently, and you have 8K film and thermal also filming at the same time, and
Hmm.
you're right in front of these things within 8 foot interacting, you can do that consistently. At some point, you're going to be able to, on camera, as the thing gets up and walks away, on camera, go right over. Oh, looky there. There's a hair. Bloop. When that DNA comes back, it is whatever that is at that point. You know what I mean?
Right. Right.
If
Right.
the only thing that could say that DNA is bullcrap is contamination. That's it. But if you collect it properly,
Uh-huh.
then they're not going to be able to say contamination. Or say this thing just happens to take a piss while I'm sitting there interacting with it. I scoop up that soil, click, 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 send that
Right.
off, eDNA, pure,
Right.
clean. You
Yeah.
know what I mean? I
Right.
gathered it when it was warm.
Mhm.
If anything like that was to happen within this process, and I could get it on film nonstop, right?
Right.
No stopping within the film. It
Right.
would have to be collected after these things moved, or directly off of them on film, right? And
Mhm.
I'm not trying to yank some hair off of one of these things. That's not
Right. Yeah, you're not walking around with a
Um,
pair of scissors going, "Come here," I
right,
mean,
right.
yeah,
But
you have to
that's
you
not
gotta
to
be
say.
opportunistic about and getting yourself in those situations so that hopefully something like that is gonna happen, you
Well,
know?
I mean,
It's
if I'm
awesome.
thinking crazy, crazy, what if you could get to a point with these things where you're interacting with them face to face,
Mm.
passing them off, say Snickers, bite-sized
Mhm.
candy bars, and we're trying to communicate at
Yeah.
some point, and at some point I pluck some hair out of my head and hand it to it, and what if on film it plucks some hair out of its head and hands it to me?
Right.
Like, what I'm, how
The
crazy is that? But
possibilities are
what if
endless.
something like that happened, and then that
Yeah.
DNA would be tested, and whatever it came back as would be undeniable at that point.
Correct.
And if they couldn't figure out what it was,
Hmm.
then regardless, we know we have an unknown species because they couldn't figure out what it was if it's not matching anything. And
Right.
you know, you may have to get into like chromosomal testing at that point to
Right.
maybe start at that check to see how many chromosomes are there, and maybe look at
Hmm.
another starting point if they can't. The problem I think with DNA is the buffers. They have different buffers that they use for mammals and reptiles, and um, they have specific buffers, I believe, that they use for humans. So there's a possibility that if they're not using the correct buffers, they're never going to get the
They're
correct
never going to get the.
reading. I'm not a DNA guy.
Mhm.
I looked into it some, but I'm no specialist.
I, if anybody's going to get this done, I think it's going to be you and Randy. I think if anyone's going to have the opportunity and the chance of a lifetime to get this thing done, my money is on you two.
Well, we're big dreamers, and like
Yeah.
Randy is it's the excitement for him. Like he's so into this, and for me too.
Yeah. But
The,
you guys approach it in just such a common sense way. You know what I mean? Like just common sense. And it's going to pay off. It's going to pay off. It's going to pay off.
here's the one advantage that we have that we've lucked upon, and that is like these things are on the property
Mhm.
consistently, right?
Right. Right.
And they have been, and we've been allowed on the property, so we've had time, like with the same ones over and over and over, and being able to we've had the opportunity to kind of develop the situation, and
Mhm.
it's not an opportunity I think that a lot of people get into. The hardest thing is finding a place where they are consistently. That's the hardest
Yeah.
part. And like
Yeah.
I was pulled into this and lucked upon this. I'd already done this once. I'd located a group accidentally back in 2013, and
Mhm.
was had started this same process that I started out in the 400, but I got 2 years into it and made a mistake and ruined it. And so like I learned a lot from it, and it was the same thing. Had two juveniles interacting with me, is like literally the same thing, except there was another younger one that wasn't interacting. But when the 400 came along, it was like I got thrusted almost like back into the same situation somewhat. So I just started that same process over that I had
Mhm.
originally done back in 2013, and made some adjustments. And like I was really patient back then in 2013 when I started, but
Mhm.
I started losing my patience and pushed forward a couple times hard and made some mistakes. Well, I learned that lesson, right? So when those moments came, I didn't push, and just kind of allowed it to happen on its own because I had
Mhm.
the time with the same group in the same area, same surroundings. Um, so the familiarity of all your surroundings gets better because you're in the same place all the time,
Mhm.
right? Doing the same hikes. So you start noticing the little nuances, and it almost seems like at times they're testing you to see, like, well, he noticed that, but will he notice this? You know, like it's wild. It's
That's
pretty
interesting.
great.
Because I mean, that just if that's the case, then they're testing you. They're
Yeah,
they're they're
throughout this
they're
process, it seems
yeah,
so.
yeah. Which that's highly intelligent, right?
Well,
Like their
the
intelligence
the
is
interesting thing I found was
impressive.
that the same thing happened last time too. Like there's this. throughout this process, there's this section of it where um, it's almost like they're testing um, your strengths and weaknesses in
Mm.
their environment.
They're
You
learning
know,
your character.
somewhat,
Mhm,
absolutely. I believe
mhm,
that wholeheartedly when they're throwing
mhm,
rocks, when they're doing things around you and closer to you, they're judging
mhm,
you on your reactions, which
mhm.
also tells them whether you're going to be predictable in a moment where like, some may not. Like
Right.
it seems like that's what they're doing throughout all this is they're learning
Mhm,
you, they're kind of figuring you out, and but there's both times there's been this moment within this setup that like where it's just constant, you know, where it's
mhm.
if they see you like say you come across a structure and you stop and study it, they'll and remember I'm doing the same hikes every single time, right?
Right, right.
So they may completely move that structure completely to the other side of the trail and back 100 feet or and
Interesting.
away a little further to see if you notice it before
Over there.
even though you're coming back to look at this one probably or you're
Uh,
you're anticipating seeing it
uh-huh,
again.
uh-huh.
Now it's over here, like things like that, like
Wow.
funny enough, I've got myself on
That's
video.
great.
This is back at my old research area with the other group, and I'm in this real thick area and the trail like narrows and the woods are real thick on this side and a lot of pines mixed in, and this side is like smaller trees but much denser. and
Mhm,
um and I'm just I have the camera on me and I'm just kind of talking and discussing, the situation out there, and I was doing the kind of the same kind of things that I do in my videos that I've done in my videos out in the 400 early on, and I say, it's crazy in areas like this. Like if you come up on one and say it got out ahead of you and you coming up on it and it's on this side and it needs to move, say you've come up on it a little quicker than it thought and it needs to move, this one back over here will knock or something to get your attention, and not
mhm.
10 seconds later, I'm literally looking to my right with the camera and boom, a knock happens over here and I stop and turn with the camera and I turn back around and I go, I was just talking about that. Like literally just talking about that. Why did I react to that? I should have kept looking to the right,
Yeah, yeah.
right? But you still react sometimes even though you
Oh
don't
my
want to.
gosh,
It
that's
just said it.
crazy. So I know that Randy had mentioned, again, I've seen you guys on so many different channels, so I don't remember exactly which one this was, but he was talking about that your footage, some of your footage was going to be in a documentary, A Flash of Beauty, Bigfoot Revealed. Is that still happening? Because it
Yes.
debuts the third May 31st.
Yeah, I
It premiere,
believe I
yeah,
believe that is a piece from the Briars, and
the one
like
you talked
where
about on
yeah,
Sawdust Bees, that one.
yeah,
Okay, yeah,
yeah, yeah, yeah, and we're
but
not
that's
sure
still
what that
happening.
is, and we've looked at that. Like, here's the only reason that we put that out and allowed them to use it is because like there's a point in there where this thing looks like it could be a bird, but when you watch the
Mhm,
whole video, as we're coming up into position where he goes in, um, I kind of put him in this hole that kind of goes into the thicket a little bit, to get us
mhm,
closer to whatever this thing is. And as he's getting the camera, he's moving the camera. There's a couple points in the beginning where you see a much bigger mass, a much bigger heat signature. And what we found the next day was there's a small tree in there in the middle of that thicket. Like there's way more to that than we discussed on there. Like I clipped my
yeah,
way cut my way into that thicket the next day, and where we think this thing was sitting, there's a little hollow spot and there's a tree. So this little tree was blocking part of whatever that was. And when he was coming in, it had it had either adjusted or his angle, catching it when he was maybe leaning to his right or something. He was going
mhm,
in. the camera kind of did this as it went this way, so it kind of got a different angle on it, and there's a whatever's there is much bigger than what most of the
Yeah.
video shows.
Yeah.
And here's the thing too is like we have every time we get heat signatures and we don't know what it is, like even if we don't think it's what we're looking for, if we can't figure out what it is, I'll walk out to it. Like the only way you're going to know is to
Mhm.
go out and see what the heck it is, right? So
Yeah.
I'm the guy, like Randy's like, go get it, Shane, throwing, throwing a treat out for me, and I'm like, um, oh, I found one. I found one. Here's one on thermal, Shane. Go see what it is.
Yeah.
Um, so
Yeah,
like
but
there is many times where the temperatures have been right, where it's
Mhm.
real cool and super. I told you this place is super humid, right? In the summers.
Right,
So at
right.
night it can get really chilly and drop temperature, but it stays really humid. So all the vegetation, these walls of vegetation, you can't see through them because they all have water and dew on them, right? And it's
Wow.
cold, so you can't see through this stuff at times.
Mhm.
Like you just disappear. It's unreal. Like when we did the recreation the next day of the one that was laying in the field behind the grass, the next morning or the next day when went back, when I laid down behind that thing, you couldn't see me either from 100 feet away. And it was, so
Wow.
we think, going out on a limb here, we think that at times like they're fairly close to not just us but other people, and they have no idea. They have no clue that they're that close.
Yeah, 'cause they're the strategy is they're gonna they'll turn into a statue,
Yeah.
and they
Randy was telling me about I think it was an older story that he read, and these guys were camping, maybe a family or something. I don't remember exactly, but
Mhm.
the whole deal is they have, when you light a fire and it's a dark night, you have a ring of
Mhm.
light around your camp, right? But that light
Right,
stops at a point. Somebody
right.
squirted lighter fluid or something, and the fire flamed up. And
Goes up.
when that light spread, there were three Sasquatch laying down, like watching them, just into the darkness behind that ring of light. So when that
Wow.
flashed up, they saw these three things laying there.
It was like a
Right?
spotlight. Oh,
Yeah,
holy
yeah,
cow.
yeah. The light moved back and
Yeah,
showed them, and so who knows, man? It's unreal. Some of the things that we've
yeah.
experienced out there, and Dan Nedrolo, he's our resident biologist that goes out with us. Super
Mhm.
great guy, and he's got a rock that he took home with him. Uh, he was actually there the night that the thing chattered to me or whatever that was.
Uh-huh.
Um,
What
I
did he
believe
think of that?
I mean,
He's a
he was kind of
he's a
shocked. He didn't get to hear it,
Uh-huh.
himself. Um, he just got to see everything happen and what he could hear from camp. But he we were sitting underneath this tarp. We hear a rock coming in through the trees from I was like sitting, let's see, I was sitting kind of this direction. The rock kind of came from this direction, but it came out flew over our little canopy, bounced off my tent, just one hit, bounced off my tent behind Dan and landed on the ground. And, immediately I caught it with my flashlight, like we heard it coming in kind of thing.
Mhm.
And so Dan collected the rock and kept it. I've actually got a rock that I kept from out there. I don't know if you've heard this story. Have we got time for one
We
more
got
little quick story?
Go for it.
Okay,
Yeah.
so this is one of like Randy loves Crawler Hill because me and him have been up there, just me and him several times and had some great experiences.
Mhm.
Um, the first night me and him went up there and camped, like we'd been up there in the middle of the night several times with the thermal sitting up on this mountain. Me knowing that the big male, like I find his tracks up there a lot. So I know he's hanging out up there at times, right? It's like it's actually the high point in this area too, which is interesting because the male in my old area hung out on the high point in that area also.
Mm.
Something to make note of. Doesn't
Mhm.
necessarily mean anything, could be coincidence, but anyway. Um, we're up there, and the first night he'll put out his parabolic mic. We have a cord that runs to the tent, it runs into the tent, and me and Randy will lay in there with headphones on and listen to the parabolic mic. So the cool thing about Crawler Hill is, or I talk about this buffer zone, right? Back to the buffer zone. So we have these different places with different buffer zones, right? So
Mhm.
we go to Crawler Hill and we set up where they only have one buffer zone. They only have one place they can get in around us without being seen, and that is the top. Okay. We're 15 yards, 20 yards from the top. Everything around us is open, uh, hardwood, large trees, right? But
Mhm.
pretty open in between them. No shrubbage or anything. And so that night, we have the parabolic pointed up there. And sure enough, like it's crazy on the audio. Like we're sitting there listening and we're listening in real time, right? So we're hearing them like step out to the edge, and then you hear a rock hit in camp, and then you hear step. So they're like moving forward, throwing, and then moving back, right? We listened to this for hours, like falling asleep, waking up. Just Randy would wake me up, and more, just hearing all kinds of stuff. Rocks hitting the side by side, never hitting the tent though. Like never hits us. They never hit the tent. They hit everything around the tent.
Mhm.
Like that night, we had this little table sitting right up against the tent, and they hit the rocks. Rocks hit the table like several times, but they never hit the
But
tent.
never hit your tent, huh?
Yeah, it's so like these things are really good at throwing rocks and hitting what they want to
Uh-huh.
hit. It's I guess you would be if you
Yeah.
lived in the wild and that was a natural thing you learned from
Right.
a toddler. You would do
Right,
that.
right, right.
So the next day, I gathered up a bunch of rocks. Well, let me go back. So the next day, I went out. I'm like, okay, so we know for sure they were up there. So I'm gonna go figure out where they came in, how they came in, think about this, and see what we can set up. So
Mhm.
I go out around the top of this mountain, and I found where they came up in this draw just to the west of us, and it kind of curves around and comes up the backside. And I tracked them all the way up into the spot where they were throwing the rocks from. Okay, filmed it all, right? Tracks, um, through high grass areas, through uh, lots of down tree areas, like followed it all the way up there where they were throwing the rocks from. So I go back down to camp. I start gathering up a bunch of rocks, and I took a Sharpie and I just put a little mark on, and it was like, I'd have to go back and look. Randy will probably correct me in the comments. So look for his comment. I want to say like 46 rocks. Okay. Put a little
Wow.
mark, put a little mark on them and took them up there and like hit them and put them in three different areas, right? With the
Right?
hope that they would throw some of our damn rocks back that night.
And they
Um,
did.
they absolutely did. So, and we have the audio of these rocks raining in all
Wow.
night. And the next day, we found one of these rocks, and it was one of them that had
That's
hit the
crazy.
side by side. Like I can, I can, I can show you, like, let you listen to the audio of
Mhm.
what I'm pretty sure this rock, the sound it made hitting the side by side,
Oh my
due to where
gosh.
to where we found it. And I've got that rock. It sits on my windowsill in the kitchen, actually.
That is so cool. When Matt and I were in Mayaka, I mean, they were definitely throwing stuff at the tent all night long. Of course, we didn't really know it until after we got home and we were listening to the audio and stuff. But yeah, they were throwing stuff at our tent all night long. All night long. Didn't stop.
Yeah.
I was like, "Holy cow." Like that was a crazy trip, but
You want to
yeah.
you want to hear it? You want to
Yeah.
hear an even crazier story?
Share it. Come on, spill the beans.
Okay, so my old area, my old research area, it kind of died out. They left that area, but they didn't go too far away. But where they went,
Mhm.
like kind of where I tracked them, I couldn't go to because it was all private property and stuff, right? So I kind of gave up for a while. I will note though that we have located them. We're pretty sure we've located that group again though, and I've got like 6 property owners out in the area that I've one way or another come in contact with that
Uh-huh.
are keeping track of things happening up and down through this particular area of their properties and between their properties. Anyway, that's all another story for another day. Um, but so my area had died down and they had kind of moved, and I couldn't go to where I thought they may be. So it was maybe a year later, and our the church that we were going to, my kids were in the youth group, part of the youth group, and we were friends with the youth pastor, and they wanted to take them camping and then floating, and my kids were going. All 3 of my boys were going, so me and my wife volunteered to go and help. Right.
Mhm.
So the campsite they had booked, it got double booked, and they lost out. So like a day
Oh.
before we're all supposed to go camping, he calls me and he's like, "Hey, we lost the place." And he's
Oh.
calling around and can't find anywhere to go camp, right? So I'm like, I know this one place that we can go to, right? And like I'm thinking we'll go out there, but we'll like kind of stay outside the area near by the
Right.
creek, and this
Yeah.
nice little camping area. And so we take this youth group out. Me and my oldest son, we I take that Friday off, and we take all the gear and stuff, and we hike out it's just like a 1.5 mile hike to where we camped. Um, but me and him made 2 trips in and out, bringing all the gear in and out. I developed a kidney stone in the process of
Oh
this.
my gosh.
Yeah, that hit me that day, uh, mid first trip. It wasn't a big one, so it wasn't horrible, but took me a couple days, 2 or 3 days to pass it. But um, we set up camp, and everybody shows up later, and kids are having fun, they're having a blast, everything's great. We're, you know, building fires, the kids are running around camp, and like it gets dark, and um, they pass out all these glow sticks and like the ones you can wear as like necklaces and
Mhm.
whatnot. So they got glow sticks all over them, and they're running around the woods all around camp, frolicking and screaming and yelling, being kids, having a great time. Midnight comes along, and so we settle them down. We put everybody to bed. I just want to make one note. My nephew had came with us, um, and he was used to going to bed early. So he wore out quicker than all the other kids, and he zonked out early. Okay, so he was the first one to sleep. So everything from here forward, he knew nothing of. Okay, so I just want to make note of that real quick. So it'll you'll understand why later. So we put them down in about some of the like we have. I don't remember exactly now because it's been so long, but I think we had 6 or 7 tents set up right in a line. And there's like this clear area before this open area where we set up the fire pit and stuff. And so they were basically in this like clearing of lane, or this lane of clearing, and they were all backed up to the woods. Okay. So some of the girls and stuff, all that, and most of the boys are passed out at this point. A few of the girls are awake. It's me and my wife and one other parent that came who we were also
Mhm.
friends with, and all of a sudden you hear knock, knock, clack, and he kind of looks at me, and my wife looks at me like, right. So my wife knew where we were. I just want to put that out there too. She's
Okay.
not completely innocent. She knew and understood where we were also, but we didn't think anything was going on out there, right?
Right.
So a few minutes later, not a few minutes later, moments later, the youth pastor pops his head out of his tent. Shane? I said, yeah. He goes, was that what I think it was? I said, yes, it was. He goes, Are we where I think I are we where I think we might be? And I said, yes, we are. He knew we were friends, right? He knew about everything. I had told
Uh-huh.
some of this stuff, but
Good.
he didn't know where this place was, and so it dawned on him right there, like holy cow. So he uh he got out. The other parent that was out was like, nope, not me. I'm done. He went and crawled in his tent and like probably put on earmuffs and zonked out as fast as he could. So my wife decides to go get in the tent with the kids. Um, our tent we had my nephew who was already asleep, and my three boys, and I think one of my boys was still awake, and he heard and understood what it was. There was a tent full of girls that heard, and one of the girls in that tent knew because her father was also a friend of mine that was involved in the church sports stuff that we were doing within this church. And so a few people were like kind of understood what was happening, right? So now it's me and the youth pastor. So we sat out there for 10 or 15 minutes listening to these two knocks and these clacks triangulated around us, responding to each other every now and then, every few minutes or so. But each
Mhm.
time they were like closing in on us, right? Getting closer and closer. Once this one that was across the creek got to where it sounded like it was like the bank of the other side of the creek,
Mhm.
from that point forward, everything went dead silent. And we're sitting there, and the youth pastor is like, "What happened?" And I didn't really say nothing right away. And he's like, "Are they watching us right now?" And I'm like, "Yeah, I think probably watching us right now." Oh my gosh. So I said, let's get up and let's walk out to the creek, So he's like, he's pumped, like he's experiencing this stuff, he is so excited. He walks out to the creek with me. Like, I think some people may have been like, no, 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 I think I'm good here. He
Yeah.
walked, he
Yeah.
walked right out there with me. We stood out by the creek. Nothing happened. We went back to camp. Nothing happened. I don't know, maybe 45 minutes we sat and waited and waited and waited. Like, I just
Oh my
knew that a
goodness.
rock was going to come flying in, and he was going to get to experience this stuff. And it didn't happen. So we turned in. I was exhausted. Like, I passed out quick. About, I don't know, this seems to be a common time, but I want to say it was like 3:30 in the morning. I'm awoken by my wife, who was awoken by the youth pastor and his wife, kind of being frantic. Right, something had
Oh
hit the
boy.
back. Something had hit the back of their tent. So I calmed them down. Everything got silent, calmed down. I think I maybe even got out. Oh, I think I did. I got out. Oh, I did. That's right. I got out and went around the outside of the tent, and it was like a chunk of wood, if I remember correctly. And there were some random rocks there too. Um, so I cleared that off. Everybody went back to sleep. Nothing else happened that night, as far as being woken up, any of us or anything.
Mhm.
The next morning, while they were cooking breakfast and all the kids were getting up and around, I walked down through the back of the tents, and some of the other tents had rocks on top of them, right? Which means that they weren't thrown hard and probably weren't thrown from a great distance, right?
Mhm.
All the tents, by the way, I'll just say this too: we didn't have the rain covers on any of the tents. All the tents we had were mesh tops, and they have
Mhm.
covers you can put over them because it gets really hot in the summer here, really hot and humid. Um, so everybody's tops were off. Um, so of course I went out into the woods behind, and sure enough, I get on some tracks. They lead up right to this point and stop, and right in front of the tracks, where the tracks are like almost side by side, like it's standing there, right?
Mhm.
Goes from it goes from a stride to a shorter stride, and it kind of cuts to the left, cuts back to the right, and stops. And right where it stopped is like this spot with all soft kind of soil and really not much grass. Where there'd been probably part of a tree that had rotted and mixed in, you know. So
Mhm.
there's two really good tracks sitting there, and in front you can see spots in the ground where something had been there, like rocks or chunks of wood or whatever, you know. And I look up, and there's like a hole in the trees, and I'm probably, you know, 25, 30 foot from the back of the tents, probably maybe 20 to 25 foot. Perfect hole to the back.
Close.
Perfect hole to the back of the pastor's tent, the youth pastor's tent. Right. So I go get him, and I'm trying to be like, I don't want the kids to think anything. I know some of the kids were awake, you know, and
Mhm.
we were going to discuss that later, you know, after all the fun and stuff was over. But I took him back and I showed him these tracks, and he's like, oh my gosh. Oh my God. He couldn't believe it. You know, he was like, that just topped it off for him. He went
Yeah.
and got a, like, I'm a Bigfoot believer sticker and put it on the back window of his truck.
I love it.
Yeah. Like right away. He was sold 100%, you know, that was all it took. But he had been hearing this stuff from me, and just, he's another one of those people that got out in an area where I said these things were and experienced them, you know, and some of
Yeah.
the kids. So remember, back to my nephew, okay? And
Mhm.
I'm just going to repeat what he repeated. So my mom calls me. My mom's like, where'd you guys go camping? It's like, oh, out in so and so county, you know. And she's like, oh, and was- I said, did Jaden have fun? Oh, yeah, he had a great time, blah, 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 you know. He said in the middle of the night he got woke up. And I was like, he got woke up, huh? So he was asleep throughout the whole night. He sleeps really hard, right?
Uh-huh.
He had woken up and opened his eyes and looked straight up, and this is what he told my mom. He said there was a black man standing over the tent staring down at him. That was in our tent. He was in the very end of our tent, between, like, the youth pastor's tent was next to ours. So
Wow.
if one of these things came up standing there, it was standing between our tents, looking down at him. But that's what he told her, and he said he wasn't sure if he had dreamed it or if it really happened or not. Right? My mom said, "Well, what did you do?" He said, "I turned over real fast and covered my face and closed my eyes, and I felt went back to sleep." Interesting, right? But then the next the next day, or it may have been later on that day, he also told her how he was like scared to death, like in the middle of the night he had to go pee.
Uh-huh.
So he got up, and instead of waking me up like he should have, he like ran out and went pee in the middle of the night, you know? And he said he was like just scared to death and freaking out. And anyway, that was kind of why I mentioned him in the beginning. I wanted to make sure that everybody understood that, like, he was asleep first and slept all night long. So he had, as far as we knew, right? We had
He
no
had
idea.
no idea any of that was
Yeah,
going on.
yeah, yeah.
And yet he has
So,
this account that
yes, yes,
he wasn't sure if it was a dream or not. And wow,
Mhm.
that's pretty crazy.
Yes.
And his description was just he just thought it was a black guy looking down at him.
He said that his words were, "A black man was staring down at me."
A black man's dude. Wow. And he was how old?
Um, 10 maybe.
Yeah. Wow.
And
Interesting.
he's a really smart kid. He's really gifted in sports. He's like
Mhm.
straight A student. Really really smart for his age. Like gets bored with school at times
Yeah.
if it's not challenging for him. That
He'll be out there joining you soon.
man, he doesn't really show much interest in it. He
No? Do your
doesn't
sons?
really. So my oldest son used to go with me to my old area.
Yeah. Uh-huh.
He has he's seen them with his eyes on 3 different occasions out there
Okay.
with me. Um, the last time he went, he's been out to the 400 a couple times with me, but
Mhm.
like we went out one time and just rode just to ride the side by side around the property and have a little fun, and that was part of what I used in my old area too. Was I wanted these things to see me with my kids interacting,
Right.
like me showing them affection and showing them love. And um, I don't know. In the beginning, I just felt like that was important, for
Yeah.
them to see that me interacting with my
That there's
family.
that
Because
right,
I,
that
because
family.
I,
Mhm.
yeah, because I was pretty sure there was a family group out there, so I wanted them to associate me in that same light, if that makes sense.
Right.
So I did that in the 400 too. I took my boys out just to have fun, but they went out with me. My oldest and my middle son and my youngest, he's been out there a couple times too with me. So my old area though, it was the last time he went out, we were in this holler, and the male was at the other end of the holler, in the lower part of it, and it yelled. And it was almost like it yelled up the holler, and
Mhm.
like the way it was just the way it echoed through the holler, like you could almost feel it, and
Mhm.
that was like for some reason that terrified my boy. Not I shouldn't say terrified him, but he didn't like it. You
Yeah.
know,
It
like
unnerved him and he
it
was
did.
feeling
It
yeah.
really did. Like he'd been he'd been quite a few times with me. Like he was getting to where he was picking up on them like this. I get a vibe. I just call it the vibe. There's
Mhm.
times, and this isn't all the time, right? But there are
Mhm.
times when I get this vibe, this feeling, and I know for sure that they're around at that point.
Mhm.
I don't know what it is that when I found them in 2013, I had my family with me, and we were hiking, and I started getting that feeling, and I stopped, walked 20, 30 foot into the woods, scanned, and boom, there they were. I hiked my family out immediately, and I was back the next morning. But it's like I
I
don't
know
know
what the
what
vibe is. Yeah.
it's it's a it's a
I've gotten
strange
that
thing.
vibe too.
It's a strange thing. It and
You can't
I try to pick up on it and like try to when
Mhm.
we're out walking with the thermal and stuff. I try to. It sounds weird,
Mhm.
but I try to like hone in, not necessarily hone into it, but like relax and just allow
Allow the
your
experience to
environment.
happen.
Yeah, just allow everything to kind of
Mhm.
come in and I don't know. After I'm in the woods for a few days, I kind of get like a reset. Like any stresses you've had. You know what I mean? You
Mhm.
just kind of you
Yeah.
relax, and once you get to that point, after you've been out there a day or two, like there for a while, every time we would go out there, I was almost like I could just shut everything else out and I could get into that relaxation,
Mhm.
being in the woods. Everything else is gone, and seems like when you kind of you know get to that point that you're letting your environment kind of pass off on you somewhat, you know.
Mhm. Kinda like decompress, right? You just have to kinda
Yeah,
like
yeah. It's just,
yeah.
being out there
Mhm.
and all the sounds are different. It's like you're in a concrete jungle in
Yeah.
day-to-day life, So when you get out
Yes.
there, you do. It's like a decompression that you get when you first get
Mhm.
out there, and like
And
once
it
you get to that decompression,
yeah.
man, it's just I love it. It's You can't beat it.
I know. I know. I know that feeling because I my job position just I still do what I used to do, but I'm out in the field a lot more and I'm like outside and that's where I like to be. Like I'm so tired of being in an office. I'm so tired of being, and I don't want that anymore and I love being out and feeling grounded and being with the plants and seeing the trees and the plant like it's just it's it just it's my happy place. It really
Yeah,
is my happy
for sure.
place.
For sure.
Yeah.
I think it does that for a lot of people.
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
think the same thing with Randy,
Yeah.
he gets out there and
Mhm.
it's like a good decompression.
Mhm.
Randy's always like
Yeah.
pumped and he gets so pumped and excited when he knows he's fixing to go to the woods. It's like
He
he's
is very exciting guy. Like I love to listen to him talk cuz he is just so engaged. Like you're just like, "Whoa, what's he going to say next?"
Yeah, being out in the field with him,
I'm
it's
hoping he'll come on my
it's
show
a
someday.
it's
He
it's a
might.
lot of it's we have a lot of fun.
That's great.
We're very serious when we're out there, but we're also like
Yeah,
not so serious.
it's good.
The way we're doing things, it's not like we're out there. We're trying to involve science, within
Uh-huh.
this, but like that's not what I'm good at. Like I'm good at tracking, and I'm good at having like, forgive me for my language, but having the balls to do some things that need
Mhm.
to be done sometimes, right?
Mhm.
Like is literally and patience. Like we have the patience and the time. We have the balls
Right.
to do some of these things that most people probably wouldn't. A lot of people say they would, but
Mm.
I'm here to call their bluff on that because I've been through it and like I know what it takes to like muster that up and be like, all right, let's do this.
Right, right.
Um, but I was fairly confident that it was going to be good, so it's not like I
Mm.
was
Yeah.
felt like I had anything to be scared of or anything. It's just been a goes
Mhm.
back to the time and the patience.
Mhm. Well, I want to thank you so much for coming on tonight. Just being open and honest and just like talking. It's been 2.5 hours and I still have like 20 people in the chat over here. It's crazy. I,
Sure, some passed out.
thank you so much. I
Yeah, no
cannot
problem.
thank you enough. This has been like you know, I told Matt, I was like, do you think maybe I could get Shane to come on? He goes, yeah, reach out to him. Reach out to him. And I was like, but what if he says no? He's like, he's just reach out to him. I'm like, okay. And you were just so sweet. You were just like, yeah, I'll come on your show. No problem. I was like, oh my gosh.
Well, no, I
It was
remembered
great.
you from you always had real positive comments and stuff. You had commented on several
Mm,
videos over
yeah.
time on my channel, and I'd seen you in some chats and stuff. And then, of course, I met your son, and he was like, "Oh, she's my mom," and
And
then
she
I saw
stalks
you.
you.
And the next time I saw you in the chat, I saw you discussing it with somebody. Is what it was, and so then it all made sense to me. So I had already that had already like happened, and then when you asked me to come on, I was like, well, of course.
Thank you.
You've
Thank
been
you.
you've
Thank you.
been you've
Thank you.
been
Thank
very
you.
supportive of us and what we're
Yeah.
doing, and I appreciate that. You know, uh,
You guys are going to get it done. I know
hopefully
it. You guys are going to get it done.
we're
You're
we're
going to get
trying
it done.
we're trying,
Yeah.
and we're loving the experiences in this process that we're going through, and it may not be
Yeah.
like the perfect process, but it's our
Mhm.
process, and like once we get to a certain point and science can get involved, and that'll
Yeah.
happen if we can get to that point. But like
Yeah.
up until then, like we're on a mission, and we're just
Well,
doing our best.
I'm excited for you. You guys got some major things going on happening there in the 400. It's going to happen. I know you guys are going to do it. I know it. You're not
Hopefully,
giving up. You guys are just like, you're out there and you're going to get this done no matter how long it takes. I have faith
hope-
in that. Yeah.
hopefully,
Yeah.
as long as this process is allowed to continue out there, we're going to be
Yeah.
doing it. So
Yeah. Well, thank you. I want you to have a wonderful rest of your holiday weekend.
you too, and thank you for
Sure.
having me.
Thank you. Thank you. And I hope that hopefully you'll come back again, maybe. We'll see.
Yeah. Once we
Yeah.
have some more stuff, like we have all this data and all this stuff sitting here that's like waiting to go be gone through. And
Yeah.
so
Well,
as we
when you
do it,
work and when you work full time and you have kids and you have a wife and it's a lot to juggle. I see, what Matt has to go through, and I just sit there like, oh my gosh, how does he have enough time to do it's crazy. It's a lot. It's a lot. It's a lot. So you got
yeah.
to
Well,
juggle a lot.
on top of that, like we get so ate up with what's happening in the present
Yeah.
that
Yeah.
all that other stuff from the past, like some of it
Mhm.
doesn't even really matter to us anymore.
Yeah.
Because of what's
Yeah.
happening now is so much.
Yeah.
It's such a different level. Um,
Right.
all that other stuff we don't even really think about anymore. It's like what's happening in the present. That's
Right. Yeah, because you have to move the ball down the field, right? Like you have to. You have to move it down the field, and you guys are doing that. You're making progress. It's not like you're not sticking and staying in the same exact, you're not on the hamster wheel. You're like, okay, we're going to push the envelope over here and we're going to try this and we're going to try that. And then you guys are just expanding on all of those ideas, and it's going to pay off. I know it. I just know it. I just know it.
hopefully. I I hope so.
Yeah. It's
That would
going
be
to.
great. But
Yeah.
if it doesn't, like, hey, um, I've had the experiences that I've had out there, and like
Mhm.
I'm cool with that being enough. But of course, that's
Yeah.
not what I want. But if it were to end tomorrow, I would be content and
Yeah.
pretty positive that me and Randy could make it happen again in another place. We've got
100%.
we have another couple properties where we know they're at also, so we just don't have time to
It's like
get there.
Jurassic Park, right? You've got site A and site B.
Yeah, but we don't have time for them. Like we're so ate up with the
That's
400 and
that's
what's happening
insane.
there. We have to focus on it.
Yeah. 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 Well, if you ever need a couple extra hands, let me know. I'll come out there. I'll cook for you
There
guys.
there are times when we're going to be bringing in random people,
Yeah.
throughout this process. So
Well, you never know. If you want me to come out and cook for you guys, I'll come cook for you guys, okay? Because I feel like I don't have to go out in the woods really anywhere. I guarantee, like you said, they come to camp and they come check out, right? So
yeah,
I don't need to go out there, But yeah, you ever need a cook, you let me know.
will do.
Okay. Thank you, Shane. I'm going to say goodnight
Absolutely.
to you, and then I'm going to just chat with my peeps here that are still here for a second. But thank you. Thank you.
Absolutely.
Blessings to you and Randy
You
and your
too.
family. Thank you.
Absolutely.
All
Have a
right.
good night.
Bye bye. Good night. I just wanted to spend a few minutes with you guys that are still here in chat. I can't even believe you guys are still here. It's amazing to me. Randy, thank you so much, because I know you were kind of like really answering a lot of questions in the chat tonight, because I just really wanted to concentrate on my conversation with Shane. And thank you, Randy. And I'm hoping that someday soon I'll get you on my show too, because I know you have a lot of stuff that you do too on your own without Shane. So I'm hoping that you're going to give me an opportunity to have a conversation with you. And I just want to because I know tonight I'm sorry, guys. I'm really still learning on how to balance the chat and my guest. And I'm working on it. It's a process, guys. I'm so sorry. Baby steps for me. But thank you, guys. Thank you, Dina. Thank you, Gary. Thank you, Bama. Thank you, Jean, Ida, Ramil Acosta. I think you might be new to my channel. I'm not sure if I've seen you before, but thank you. Thank you for coming. Sharon Guy, I love you. I hope you're doing better. I hope you're feeling better. I'm still praying for you. Who else was in here tonight? The Lazarus Project. Let's see. Who else was here tonight? Pyromedic, thank you. Danny Staten, thank you. Thanks, guys, for coming and hanging out with us tonight. Steve Wolf, another sweetheart of a guy. I saw Strangeland in here tonight. I saw Mr. Jeff Townsend was in tonight for a little bit. Ruger Ridge. I'm going to be actually interviewing Ruger Ridge in a couple of weeks. Yeah, so that's going to be a fun one. I've been dying to kind of just pick his brain and find out like what's going on his what he lives with, right? Like they're on his property. So I'm looking forward to that. So if I missed anybody tonight, my apologies. North Alabama Cryptid, Mid-South Sasquatch, thank you guys for coming tonight. I appreciate all of you guys' love and support and encouragement. It means everything to me. There will not be a show next week. Matt and I are going to the Southwest Florida Skunk Ape Conference next week in Punta Gorda. If you haven't bought your tickets, definitely get them before they are sold out. And I think they are close to selling out. I know that we had kind of commandeered a hotel there, and we're planning on having a complete blast. I know Dina's going to be there, and lots of other people. So Ruby, that's right. I saw you in here, Ruby Joe. I love you. And I'll see you next week. And again, I love you guys so much. And thank you. One more thing, it's Memorial Weekend. And I just, anyone that has served our country, thank you. Thank you for your service. I have nothing but respect for you. And I don't care what branch of the military you were in or what job you performed. You got us our freedom, right? Like, not only have we gotten our freedom from our military, but I think we keep our freedom through our military. So, I love thinking of it like that, So, have a wonderful Memorial Day, guys. Thank you so much for sticking around. I know it's been a really long show tonight, but it was just it was so much fun and full of so much information. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Love and blessings to all of you. And what I'm hoping to do is get some interviews maybe from the conference next week, and then I'll kind of like upload those for you guys. I think that'll be kind of fun. And so the next time on the Continuum, we have coming up, hang on one second, guys. I'm tired. I'm sorry. I'm just getting like a little punch drunk, I think. So on the 11th, June 11th, we're going to be, Al Santoriga is going to come, and we are going to talk about his investigation that he did at Gettysburg. And of course, while he's here, I'm going to pick his brain on all kinds of things, all kinds of cryptids, all kinds of places he's gone and done and things so it's going to be fun. So, all right, guys, have a wonderful weekend. Thank you. Bye-bye.